Jones, and I'm here to tell you folks, the world has fallen. The fascist globalist overlords, they're implementing the Great Reset. You don't believe me? I've seen the tapes. Watch it, folks. Watch as these pot-bellied Zoomer goblins work with the Illuminati to pit us against each other. I promise I'd be a good boy.
I'm a good boy.
There's only one cure, folks, and that's liberty. And there's no better channel to find freedom than Fabian Liberty. Anarchy is order. Government is civil war.
I just got 3 things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes. Hold on, your head is bloody.
So we gotta move to the front.
Not only do you have a micro penis, which is an important point, but on top of that, you refuse to share your Pokemon cards, and that's not nice.
So first of all, a 2-inch penis is not a micro penis, okay? And for your second point, my Pokemon cards are all mine, and I don't have to share them if I don't want them. I work super hard to get them, and they're really special to me. So I'll keep them.
No, you don't understand. You can't continue to play with us if you refuse to share your
Not fair.
cards.
I'm Ukrainian, and this is my bridge. I'm Ukrainian, and this is my gas station. I'm Ukrainian, and this is my school.
2 seconds earlier.
Would you let a Jew work out in your gym without paying if he claimed that the membership was promised to him by God 4,000 years ago?
No. Bro, you are fucking...
That's a good question.
Yo, you're fucking funny. No, I mean, everyone pays.
What if he tried bombing you for that?
Bro, I mean, that would be like some crazy crime. Some act of, I don't even know, terror, I don't know.
Are you taking a political stance right now?
Just found in my house. That's called a bird grasshopper. I'm gonna eat him.
He's not been transparent. I mean, there may be...
They are making routine announcements about the things they are finding, and they are inviting questions about the things they are finding every single day.
But by definition, he's not being transparent. They're not providing data for the things that they say they have found evidence of. They just aren't.
I mean, the White House has provided...
You can make announcements, and you also did admit that he actually...
So you just don't believe it. I mean, they are providing information. You just choose not to believe that it's true.
We're seeing about 13 months for these brain and spine MRIs. Cool. Cool. Canada, where healthcare is free, but only if you can afford to wait.
Step 10, states must publish their own map and allow internal challenges to their own map. So the government has published a map. They have invited the states to challenge the map. Then states have submitted initial proposals, and they then have to publish their own map and allow challenges.
Wait, who's challenging it within the state?
Well, organized interest groups, environmental groups, like I don't know who specifically, but literally anybody. This is, right. I want to say something because it's very important I say this. This is the Biden administration's process for its own bill. They wanted this to happen. This is how liberal government works now.
This is something they instituted for this bill.
For their bill. This is a bill passed by Democrats with a regulatory structure written by Democratic administration. Okay.
Right.
Step 11.
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
For our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done.
free fries when you get vaccinated? I got vaccinated. You're saying I could get this? These delicious fries? Wait a minute. But there's also a burger element to this? Let me check with Bill Neathart. Is it too early in the day to eat a burger? No. This could be breakfast? Okay. I want you to look at this and think about, again, some people love hamburgers, some don't. Really want to respect all ways of life. But if this is appealing to you, just think of this when you think of vaccination. Vaccination. I'm getting a very good feeling about vaccination right this moment. Thank you.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
Men to woman, or woman to men.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina.
In the shower, on a walk, the Dylan hour. Feeling sweet, feeling sour. I feel nothing. The Dylan hour.
Hello and welcome to Wales. We understand being a refugee isn't easy. They're going through so much. Fleeing your country is difficult, but Wales wants to help you feel welcome. The Welsh Refugee Council is here to help you.
Tell me you love me. Say it like you mean it. Say it like you mean it. Message one other guy ever again whether we're together or not. Yeah, understand me?
But if you're a man who's stuck with a woman and you don't even get along with each other and it's a show marriage and you have to be together and you argue all the time and you're sexually repressed and you're being promised in secret that you can go to an island and finally be pleasured and satisfied, no one's ever going to find out, that's how you end up on the island. So this whole monogamy garbage that's being pushed by the West, especially amongst our elites, is the reason we have the biggest problem with pedophilia, and they don't have this problem in South America.
The whole point of this is for me to begin to reintroduce myself. I'm doing this both personally for me, but in a professional capacity. Moving forward, the majority of what you will see will be me speaking in a professional capacity. My goal is to continue to help give.
And I'm always arguing with them, hey guys, if no one pays taxes, then who's going to stop the fires? Who's going to stop all the violent crime? Dummies. And then the LA fire happened, and the fire department didn't stop the fire because I guess they ran out of budget for water, and the police didn't stop the looting because I guess they didn't want to get near the fire. And so I guess I lost that argument. My bad.
I'm just saying, I wish I could play my own fucking music. Like I wish I could play music that like wasn't nonsense. Like I'm playing currently. I miss the old days of streaming when you could just like play your favorite songs while gaming. Yeah, it's all right. All right, it is a little banging. That clip will never be dated, LOL. The LA fires where they ran out of water. So any of them really? Yeah, you're not wrong, Mark. Oh, man. I am excited for a busy week. I got shit planned. Obviously Monday, Prime Guys. Tuesday, I have a thing planned. Wednesday and Thursday are still up in the air, but I have some stuff. Also, there's a lot of stuff I need to get to reacting to. Should be a fun week. Should be a fun week before, when is Mother's Day? Mother's Day is this coming weekend, right? One of like a billion fucking holidays that are just designed to fucking make men pay for shit for women for no fucking reason so they feel loved. It's the 11th. this Sunday. Got a busy week too, but today felt like it's been 3 days long. Jesus, what happened? Mid-movie? Is that like mid-movie combined? Mr. Venom will always love you. That's what men have. Yeah, I don't know. I just like holidays are just such a use. Like I get like religious holidays. I do get the religious holidays. They're pretty dope, but you know, apart from like Christmas, every other holiday really just feels like an excuse for men to lose money and for women to like judge men. Maybe I'm just like black-pilled or something. I just don't like, oh, we have Mother's Day. Like what do men get? They get Father's Day. You know, and Father's Day sucks. And then we get Veterans Day and Memorial Day, but we only get Memorial Day if we died. And Veterans Day is fucking lame, and you got to sign up to go die to get that holiday. Everything else is just like an excuse to sell mattresses and cars or an excuse to give women money. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. I mean, like, yeah, Easter, that's a religious holiday. It's as old as, it's just a solstice. Christmas and Easter are just solstice holidays. Have I seen the YouTube Mother's Day ad? No. Hold on. There's a YouTube Mother's Day ad? Hold on. Let me see. Is it like by YouTube or is it just a random Mother's Day ad on YouTube that I'm supposed to know about? It doesn't look like there is a YouTube one. It's sponsored by YouTube? What do you mean? Let's see if I can find it on Google. Don't worry, you'll figure it out. Like, all right. Is it Hallmark Mother's Day 2025? Is that what it is? Because you still haven't told me, like, what the ad is. Real Star Wars Day, May 20th. Dude, no one gives fuck. Star Wars is dead. Just let it die. I don't know who Brenda Song is, but all right, fair enough. Yeah, no, like, dude, fucking men don't get anything for Valentine's Day. That's a little gay. Is that like different in Australia? Because like I don't know dudes that get anything. Like the only dudes that get something in Valentine's Day are like. I guess you're incredibly lucky men, or like maybe like teachers or something might get something. Tell that to the disco fans. What? I hate all of you. You guys are so vague about everything.
Bye.
All right, there we go.
This Mother's
Okay, that feels way louder than it should be.
Day, don't ask for mom. Ask Door Dad.
Door Dad.
DoorDash is now DoorDad.
Mom, what are you doing in there?
What do you think I'm doing in here?
So moms get flowers plus a real break.
I could take a full bath?
Exactly. When you buy flowers on DoorDad, you can gift mom.
Hey, Mom! Can I get some meatballs?
You can gift mom a delicious meal, a family activity, or a self-care treat.
Mom!
Oh, this is so annoying.
Mama!
I wish they had DoorDad in my day.
Happy Mother's Day.
This Mother's Day, don't ask.
Mom!
Hold on. There was a dad in the picture right here. Look at this. Hold on. Dad, in DoorDad, Dad gets a fucking half a second off-screen
Happy
cameo.
Mother's Day.
This Mother's Day, don't ask.
Look, there's Dad. Dad exists. Why do we need DoorDad? Like, this is clearly an ad for sad, pathetic Western women that seem like how do women not commit suicide? That's my question. I'm not saying women should commit suicide. All right, not saying that. I'm not supporting suicide at all. All right, please understand that. But when I see shit like that, I'm like, how do they not just blow their fucking brains out? It's like, does society cater to them to such a degree that they can keep going? Because that just seems so, like, if you're over here buying DoorDash for fucking single mom, was like, I can't bathe, I can't shower without DoorDad. They attempt suicide at incredibly high rates. They just suck at it. They don't attempt suicide that much higher than men. But you are correct that the men are far more successful because of the means of suicide. But a lot of those are fucking cries for help that get classified as suicide. It's really just another means of getting attention. In Japan, what? Then they're the best at it? Yeah, I mean, men are definitely better at completing suicide. But it just depends on what your goal is. If your goal is just to get everybody to feel sorry for you, then women are better at it. Also, is Brenda Song just a random Asian lady? Is that who that is? Okay, it is. What the fuck was she in? I don't think I know any of these. Blue Eye Samurai, Like Mike. Oh, The Social Network. But I watched it like when it came out. Wendy Wu, Homecoming Warrior. Secret Obsession. The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. I've never heard of The Sweet Life. Or Zach and Cody, to be honest. Never heard of any of this. I was like, when the first season of this aired, I was 15, going on 16. It was a big thing when we hit high school. I don't think I'm not going to lie. I've always avoided TV. Even when I was in high school, I was like, TV sucks. Shit that was popular. I mean, I don't imagine when we were in high school, I don't think I knew anybody that watched like TV sitcom stuff. I mean, I'm sure I did, but I just don't I didn't hang out with them or talk with them about it. TV is goated. Nah, TV's trash, dude. TV sucks. As popular as SpongeBob, just way less merch? Fair enough. I just never really watched that much TV growing up. Drake and Josh. I heard of Drake and Josh. I never watched it. I don't know. Maybe I was a weird kid. I liked video games and reading books. And TV was just always so boring and slow to me. Anger? What do you have to be angry about? Slow as dope. You mad at these Trump tariffs? Totally was a TV kid? No, I mean, I recognize there's a lot of TV kids growing up. It's never my thing. You know what happened to Drake? No, I don't. Wasn't like Drake in Drake and Josh or whatever, or one of those fucking shows in a wheelchair, and he got shot or something? Just as a kid? No, I'm saying I was a fucking... You didn't call out stolen concept fallacy with Jay Dyer. That's why we anger. Dude, you are... I made something just for you, Slow as Dope. I made something just for you. Okay?
So my message to the haters out there is no one cares, no one's listening. All right, well, let's get...
Nickelodeon child star under Snyder? Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, man. Dan Schneider be messing with a lot of kids. Ooh. When is Doobie getting me on Piers? Does Doobie have the power to get anybody on Piers Morgan? I don't fucking know. I'm really shocked that Tim Pool brought back Connor. Like I fucking destroyed Connor on Tim Pool's program. And then they brought him back to argue about tariffs and economics against Econo Boy from I guess on welfare mostly. And I was like, your entire audience hated this guy. Why did you bring him back? It'd be one thing if I beat somebody in a fucking debate and then but that was just kind of my feeling or my audience's feeling, but his whole audience, they brought him back because Tim agrees with him more than you. I don't know, man. Maybe. I doubt it though. I mean, I'm probably sure it's just DC money. You know what I mean? Connor gets paid to do shit like that. He got paid to do that by the people representing him in DC, because he has Democratic organizations that represent him to be the anti-red pill guy. Hate breeds engagement. Well, yeah, but not when it's two types of people that you hate. You gotta have a hero and a hated. You gotta have a hero and a heel. I agree with you that hate breeds engagement, bringing people on that your audience doesn't like, but you have to have a positive and a negative. You have to have somebody for the audience to hate and then somebody for the audience to fall behind. And I don't know if it's having two people on your audience hates and then having Tim Pool having to come in and moderate. I don't think it's enough love. It's always easier work to be the heel. I don't know. As I get older, I get more and more tired of the game, more and more interested in truth and good conversation. So I have a harder time playing the heel. Yeah, the audience needs someone to root for. It's just I have a harder time saying being shitty just to be shitty to win a point. Cause it's just I don't know. I see a lot of people do that in debates and stuff and it's just dude, what did we gain from this? It feels like I'm on Flavor Flav, you know what I mean? Or I'm on some reality TV show. It's what did we learn? What did the audience learn? What truth did we come closer to? Who did we convince? You know, did we give out some level of advice for people in their life? Did we do anything other than just give dumb people mindless entertainment of my person scored a point? You know, it's just I don't know. The older I get and the more I do this, the more I'm just less interested in that. It was easy to do when I first started out because I was hungrier or whatever, but I don't know. Like, it just kind of, I don't want to say it feels gross. It just feels useless. It's just like, it feels like I've done something just to get it done for the day. Dude's losing his edge, becoming a boomer? Maybe. You need to get out of bed, but it's cold. You die a hero or become a boomer. Other streamers made me lose interest in streaming. Yeah. I think that's part of it too, is knowing that like 90% of these people are lying, grifting assholes. It's like almost every other streamer that I've met has shown at some point a complete lack of integrity. It's really like for almost all of them, it's just about the money. Yeah, it's like I don't want to make relationships with fake people. Like I want to network, but like literally everybody is fake. Cash pays, integrity doesn't. That's why you broke. I mean, you know, I ain't ever seen you pony up any cash. Slope is dope. So I'm just assume you a broke boy too. The only difference is you a broke boy without an audience. If I kept at it, I bet it would have been the Australian Speed. Oh, I would have been the Australian Speed. Aren't you? You just released a YouTube channel, which everybody go check it out, by the way. Had a fun interview with him. Zulu had an interview with him. The founder of the Australian LP had an interview with him. And who else did you interview? Seven Kinsella. I got you that one, by the way. Sort of. I just added him on Twitter and was like, you should talk to this guy. Chuxamon. What is it? The Liberty Tyrant on YouTube? Let me see if I can find it. I'll link it in chat. Oh, fuck, dude. I got a lot of Throne and Liberty videos. What's the fucking Tyrant's Den? There we go. Slope asked me to do this. I'm going to play this button. I'm going to play this button as many times as I need to play it, boys. As many times as it requires.
So my message to the haters out there is no one cares, no one's listening. All right, well, let's get...
However many times it takes, I'm going to play it. Who's your favorite libertarian YouTuber besides yourself, and who's your favorite bread tuber? So I don't know. She's not really BreadTube because they stole it from her, but I really like Connorpoints. I like Connorpoints because her videos are really well thought out, and she's not dropping 100 fucking videos, a week. So it's like she puts out a video, and it's like, oh, I can get to it when I get to it, and it'll be a good video. I think she has a lot of good takes, a lot of dumb takes, but a lot of good ones too, and they're well thought out. In terms of like liberty YouTubers, I don't like any of them. I'm just kidding. I mean, like, I watch the occasional Zulu video because they're informative. And like every now and then I'll watch like a Mentis Wave video for the same reason, but I tend to prefer Zulu. But that's because I'm like super nerd about it. And so it's like if Zulu has a video about a specific type of thing. Did you say Lauren Chin? Don't say that shit in my chat. Fuck Lauren Chin. I know things about Lauren Chin that you guys don't know. Fuck Lauren Chin. I'll leave it at that. Things I won't betray other people's trust when I say, but fuck Lauren Chin. She's a piece of shit. I would love to. No, Lauren Chin is an evil piece of shit. Spill the tea? I'm not spilling the tea. I'm not. No. Things I was probably shouldn't have been told, I've been told. And I know things. But yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. Just suffice to say, she's a piece of shit. But yeah, no, I like Zulu and Mentis Wave occasionally when they have some. Like Tick History has some cool videos from time to time. It really just depends more on the content itself.
Peacecraft donated $5. My favorite is Philosophy Tube because it's a cheat sheet on how to argue against cross-dressing theater kids. And I fucking hate theater kids.
Fair enough, Peacecraft, fair enough. About Sydney Watson, I can't stand Sydney Watson. She's just another fucking feminist. She's annoying. She's another fucking feminist masquerading as a libertarian that doesn't know anything about libertarianism. Masquerading as like a conservative, liberty-minded person, but she's just another feminist. I'll just leave it at, it's literally the craziest stuff you've ever heard if I actually told you. Well, I mean, someone brought it up, and so I made it very clear, in case anybody else was watching, that I do not fucks with her, and that I know bad things. ANCAP Cop Watch. Yo, ANCAP Gamer still hates me. I don't know why. It's all because, I mean, I know why, but it's just funny, because, like, it's not that crazy, chat. I mean, fair enough. We'll leave it. Anyways, yeah, ANCAP Cop Watch. We watched it, like, he wanted us to react to him getting arrested. And, like, we were laughing at him. And it was 100% his fault. Like, like a baddie, hot Latina cop asked him politely, like 5 times, to just move onto the other side of the road while they were dealing with an active shooter situation. And he was like, I'm not fucking moving. You can't tell me what to do, tyrant. And he's in the middle of the fucking road while they're like hunkered up behind some shit dealing with an active shooter. And he's like, oh, fuck all of you. And then he got fucking tackled. And a dono came in while he was like, like on the ground. And we were just losing it. It was so fucking funny. And he's hated us ever since. We're like fake ANCAPs. We sucked the statist dick because we said maybe he should have moved to the other side of the road while cop watching during an active shooter situation. And I was simping a little bit because that cop was a baddie. I was like, yo, she can arrest me. Donald Trump, please save me moment. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that ANCAP needs a new name. It's fine. But I do sometimes think Rothbard might have been right when he was writing in letters saying that we should differentiate ourselves from the term anarchism. And he thought about calling us like non-anarchists, which is a worse name, by the way. But yeah, it doesn't matter what name we choose. It'll just become a new thing. I mean, that's what voluntarists did, is that they were just like, they don't want to call themselves ANCAPs. So they just call themselves voluntarists. And it's like, dude, you're the same thing. I just go by anarcho-objectivist. I like the term. I don't use it, though. But you'd have to be an objectivist to call yourself that? I'm mostly an objectivist. I just don't call myself an objectivist because I don't really like being associated with like randroids. Helicopter ride giver. It's just like I don't call myself an objectivist because I don't want to be associated with some of that stuff, and I don't feel like having that argument, like I'm not married enough to objectivism's like name, like Zulu is, to be like, no, we are the true objectivists. She's like, I'm a libertarian first, and most of my moral decisions are done through an objectivist lens, as is my philosophical grounding. Yeah, I just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like having that fight with objectivists because they're just fucking annoying, most of them. Like they're more like it's so hard to be more annoying than fucking libertarians.
Peace
But
Craft
objectivists pull it
donated
off.
$3. Not interested in government grants or expected results. It needs a punchy acronym.
Not interested in government grants or expected results. It needs a punchy acronym. What do you mean by that, Peacecraft? Also, Peacecraft, are you like banned on YouTube or something? Because I never see you in chat. I just see you donate or in Discord. Oh, oh man, got him. Yeah, you got me. I see. There's a fucking fellow Shiloh supporter watching the program today. I see that. Shiloh Hendricks has a new fan in chat donating. Oh, that was wild. I mean, I'd consider myself an objectivist, though I'm still new to the school of thought. Yeah, I just don't like having to fight over the term. I don't feel married enough to the term to try and gatekeep the term. And if I take on like anarcho-objectivism, like then I'm like almost obligated to like fight. Shiloh who? Shiloh Hendricks is I can't show the video online for obvious reasons. But basically, Shiloh Hendricks is the most 2025 thing I've heard in my entire life. So basically, this young trailer trash lady was at the park and a supposedly 5-year-old autistic black boy, though he's in the video and he's clearly like 9, 10, 11 years old. And he doesn't seem to be outwardly autistic, but I mean, how do you fucking prove autism with a fucking half a second in a video? But so a young black boy that's supposed to be 5, that's obviously not 5, is rummaging through her diaper bag / bag at the park to steal shit from her. Probably trying to find her wallet or something to steal from her. And then she called him the N-word and like to drive him off. And so I don't know, some of them got a look about them. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of tell my son's autistic. You know what I mean? He's got like a chew necklace on his neck and like a little super rubberized tablet, and he's like woo 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 doing his thing. You know what I mean? Like he's a little, but there's a difference between that and like kind of autistic. So this unaccompanied 5-year-old autistic black kid, who's probably just a regular 10-year-old kid trying to steal shit, she accosts him and she calls him the N-word. And then this is where it starts getting real 2025. And then it's not clear if he's Somalian or Haitian. I've heard both. I think he's Somalian is like what the group is mostly there, but the guy might be Haitian. Regardless, a black immigrant Muslim who is at the park, who just had a case dismissed for raping a 16-year-old foster girl.
Peacecraft donated $3. Autism is a collection of qualities describing an inability to fit in and understand social norms and nuance of the society you are in. If he was stealing at 5, I would say he's a...
So, anyways, thank you for the dono. But anyways, so that's a bad description of autism, but I'll let it slide. So this man who just got a case dismissed for sexually assaulting a 16-year-old foster girl who had like run away from foster care, with multiple witnesses and a rape kit done, but it was dismissed in, quote, the interest of justice, is at a playground without children and begins to film her. And basically is like, how dare you call that little kid the N-word? And then she was like, I called him what he is, and then just flicked the guy off and was like, N-word, 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 N-word to this other guy. And he was like, we'll see what the internet thinks about that. And then because of the Carmelo Anthony situation and because of the Give, Send, Go money that the Carmelo Anthony kid was getting, hold on, one more step before that. She immediately gets doxxed. They followed her to her car. They put her license plate out. They put her address out. The entire internet is coming after her job. They're like, she's getting tons of threats about like people are going to find her kid at school, right? Which is always so funny to me when black people are like, you can't call us the N-word or we're going to act like one. It's like, yo, you don't get to be offended and then by words and then immediately follow that up with threats of violence. You're kind of just proving their point, which nobody wants except the white supremacists. Like, what are you doing? And so then she put out a Give, Send, Go, and she very quickly raised 20 grand and then was like, fuck it, and bumped it up to $1 million. And she has now gotten more Give, Send, Go donations than Carmelo Anthony. She's at like $548,000 last I checked. And all the white supremacists and the horrible X accounts put out, like, have been boosting her, like, donate. And black people have been very mad that Carmelo Anthony got less money than her, even though he stabbed somebody in the heart and, like, she said the naughty words. People have just been losing it. Yeah. BLM motherfuckers in shambles. I'm like 90% on her side. I don't think you should be saying that to a fucking kid, no matter how old they are. But it's like very clearly like a 10-year-old kid trying to steal her shit. And like she's there unattended, no parents. And it's like, yeah, you shouldn't be fucking doxxed and have the whole internet come after you for it. And then Give, Send, Go was forced to cut the comments off of both Carmelo Anthony and this link. And they're treating it like it's the same thing. And there have been racial fucked up comments on both of them. But like the racial fucked up comments on like the Shiloh Hendricks one have been like, we're done. White guilt is gone. Or like, yeah, they are in words. You know, like that's been the worst ones. And then like, the ones on Carmelo Anthony, there was dozens you can find, even, you know, where people save them, where it's like death to the white race. Like, you know, I don't care if he's guilty or not. I would give money to anybody that stabs another whitey in the heart. And it's like shit like that. And they're like, same thing. And it's like, not really, but okay. And so we're having a Give, Send, Go, Dono race war right now. Like it's just, and about a guy who's clearly a child rapist unattended at the park over like a young black boy stealing shit at the park and a white trash lady that loves saying the N-word. And like the whole thing is just so 2025 and I love it. It's just hilarious to me. The entire experience is just funny. Did I see the Tim Pool with Connor and Econo Boy? I did. I didn't see all of it. I saw some of it. I saw as much as I could stomach before I was like, two stupid socialists. And I was like, how the fuck did Connor get back on Tim Pool? And then I just had to remind myself that I don't have a DC firm, you know, that is like representing me and like paying me to get there. Like I don't have the Democrats giving money to fucking to different places to book me. So. Sounds like a setup. What's a setup? Connor versus Econo Boy got the same response out of me. LOL eventually just chapped out. Yeah, it was just like, it was mostly just Econo Boy educating Tim Pool and Connor on left-wing economics. And then Connor pretending to be a conservative, so he's just kind of agreeing with him, but like very angrily having counterpoints, which are just fucking like DNC, you know, like Blue Dog Democrat talking points. And so it was just, and then eventually it was just Tim versus Econo Boy. And then Connor being mad that he wasn't included enough, being like, no, I was patient. It was just like, it was just bad all around.
So I don't know if they were paid. I don't know if they paid him to be there or if just people loved the hate or what. I don't know. I don't know what Lisa was thinking if she was the one that scheduled. Yo, what, roommate, why are you? Thank you. But yo, I appreciate it. Those donuts could all be USAID for all we know. I really appreciate it, Mark. It's weird when my roommate does gifts. Thank you. I'm just going to shut up and enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, like, who knows? Like, DNC activist NGO organizations are certainly paid for in part by your tax dollars, and then also paid for in part by, like, corporate entities and activist organizations that probably write, you know, some of, like, probably funnel money so that large billionaires can write money off of their taxes, right? You know what I mean? Like, you donate to an NGO or some charity organization and be like, oh, this is, you know, this is the good work we're doing, etc. And then, you know, and then they give that money to another activist organization. So, I mean, like, a good chunk of the money going in Connor's pocket to push leftism and pretend to be a conservative is probably your money. This is his half of the rent. It better not be. Yeah, it better not be. Oh yeah, Little Bit's got a gifted sub? Hell yeah, dude. I got brought up at least? No, I'm super happy to be there. I just thought it was weird. I was like, really? Y'all brought him back? Like, I don't know why they did. I'm sure there was a reason for it. Maybe his company just is constantly emailing and they're like, yeah, we'll bring you back. It was good. A lot of people liked it. Who knows? I don't know if Peacecraft's dono is going to go through because Mark gifted memberships, so I'll just read it. Thank you for your support of Shiloh Hendricks. Oh no, here we go.
Peacecraft donated $3. Thank you for your support of Shiloh Hendricks. Fabian Liberty is a proud business partner of the Cool Kids Club.
Spelled with all K's, by the way. My support of Shiloh Hendricks, like I said, is like 90%. I still don't think you should like be calling kids slurs. But other than that, like, I don't really think what she did was that bad. Like, I mean, she had a crash out at the playground because some kid was stealing shit out of her bag, and then some fucking creepy dude starts filming her. You know, and I don't know. Shiloh is such a whack-ass name. Or weird-ass name. Yeah, it's a... Oh, hold on. Where's Slope is Dope? It's a Jewish name. She must be a Jew. D-Horse Productions, haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for coming in with an unhinged chat, completely not reading the room. I missed you, but that's a weird thing to come back after a while to just go, restore the Kiev Rus, end Ukraine war, make Israel the 51st USA, end the conflicts, please spread the word. Where did you get a random ass copy pasta? A spam Discord? No, why? Spread the word, guys. If you don't, you'll die in 3 days if you don't share this to 10 people.
Peacecraft donated $3. If calling kids slurs is wrong, I was Shiloh Hendricks every day for hours a day in 2007 XBL lobbies.
Weren't we all? I was not an Xbox lobby kid, unless I was over at somebody else's house, but I do identify with that time. I do miss it. I miss the problem is this doesn't get us closer to back then. Because like we didn't say that shit really genuinely out of hate. We were just mad we got beat on a game, or like nobody really cared. We were trying to be edgy and it was funny. You know, like you can't slur your way back into 2005. It doesn't work. No, we didn't. That's funny. You miss the Bush years? I miss the culture of the Bush years. I don't miss fucking Bush or those wars. I don't miss the fucking economic collapse.
Peacecraft donated $3. I genuinely said it out of hate.
I know you did, Peacecraft. I know you did. That's why Mark said in chat, no, we didn't. Oh fuck. I miss the good old days when people could. Dude, you really actually went into the Discord to spam the copy pasta. Dude, stop. You missed 2019? That was your peak fucking America? Get out of here, dude. What was the culture of the Bush years? Trexmon, the Bush years were basically today's culture, but without OnlyFans. And the girls that were comically whores were girls that had like sex with 10 dudes in college. And racial tensions were way less. And people were just like less worried about offending people. And we were a little bit less fat. That's pretty much it. Like, we didn't have TikTok, but we had Vines, you know. We didn't have social media wasn't like a necessary thing for everybody, but we used it sparingly. You know what I mean? Like, people had like MySpace profiles where you would like set up your music so people could tell what kind of music you were into. And like people would, you know, go in AOL chat rooms and fucking like talk shit on each other a little bit every now and then. But more often than not, people went out and actually met people. There's like something in between now and Gen X, but with like a lot less racial issues. Gen X people, they did like legit like FAG bashes, and they did hate the blacks. You know what I mean? Like, we went in the other way. Could buy drugs off the dark web. If you were a big fucking nerd, yeah. Hey, at least you liked the stream. There's 33 of you watching and only 13 likes. What's wrong with you guys? Graduated school in 99. It was pretty good. Yeah, I'm a little after you, Stacy Pastry, but yeah. All right, I gotta do one of these bad boys. Where is the camera? There it is. Now, which of these fucking... I guess I go to fucking waiting room. There we go. Finished high school 3 years after I was born. God damn. That does seem mean. I'm not gonna lie, that does seem mean to do to Stacy Pastry. You about to destroy Connor again? I don't know. I don't know what his fucking positions are. I'm not like a super pro Tariff guy. So it'll be hard to, I mean, like, maybe, I don't know. It really just depends on what his position is. Embrace your heel. Dude, I'm more interested in just actually talking about this in a meaningful way. Because it's a small panel. Like, when it's like an 8-person, 9-person panel, I kind of feel the need to like get in and like talk shit more. But when it's just a couple of us, I hope to have a real conversation about things. So if you see me on a panel with like 4 people or less, I'm less interested in being a heel and more interested in just having the conversation. If you see me on a panel with like fucking 6 or more people, yeah, I'm there to be an asshole. He's probably accidentally right because Trump's bad. Yeah, like I feel like he'll be accidentally right because he wants to talk shit on him, but at the same time he has to pretend to be, concerned about certain things. So who knows? Your joints are better than mine? Fuck you. Look, you might be right, but fuck you. All right, let me get rid of this. Who's DMing me? All right.
Hello.
Send us some. Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just wanted to double check, make sure that my Discord settings were correct.
Are we good now?
I guess so.
Is my mic? Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry, I don't know if you guys ever do this. I went and clicked to move you guys, and then after I clicked the second time to move Connor, I accidentally moved the entire channel right after, and then moved myself into the waiting room after trying to move it back. And
I watched it happen.
Yeah, we watched it. That's why I was like, are we good now? Like,
yeah.
Is everything working? I think my camera's just was just giving me some trouble.
dude, I'm about to like quit Discord and come back because the whole thing is like very buggy right now. I'll be right back.
It's working okay for me, but I hear you, Fabian, because when Tom was talking, I wasn't getting a lineup between the audio and the video.
Yeah, but
which
I'm also
happens
seeing
sometimes.
like lag elsewhere, so I'll be right back. I'm just gonna actually quit Discord completely and then reload it up because I don't want to deal with that all stream. He doesn't realize I'm his mother. Oh God. Oh no. Oh no, Stacy. Oh shit, that's funny. Where the fuck? Oh, there it is. All right, hopefully that fixes it. Okay, just keep saying my audio bit rate is less than recommended, but it only does that like when I'm in. Test. Yeah, why are you? Yeah, all this is muted. Okay. It's only doing that when I'm in the Discord, when I open it up. Like, I don't know which program doesn't like my Discord, but one of them doesn't. I'm in the waiting room. I don't think they see me. Yeah, it looks fine now. Yeah. I'm about to start playing music again. What are these guys doing? Pay attention. You were born in 2005? Oh. Oh my God, that hurts. That hurts. I'm uninvited. That would be funny. They really just leave me in here. They just kicked me out of the disc. You guys kicked me out. What was that?
Your ideas were too powerful. We needed to silence you before you altered on us.
I don't know. I'm pretty chill on 4-person panels. You'll be all right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I generally like 4-person panels. Leader was trying to get like 20 people on here originally.
No, once I get to like 5 people, it becomes like a wrestling show. It becomes reality TV.
Danabo has the opinion that 8 is the magic number because whenever you have 2v2, 4v or 3v3, whatever, there's something that'll happen with a healthy chunk of conversations. Where the good news is, I think all of us are effectively conversational napalm. If there isn't, somebody filling the gaps, we're going to fill those gaps. But there's other streamers who just they'll just sit there and dead air and stare at each other. And so
that's on Danabo though. That's on Danabo though, because he will bring on people who, where these are just some boring ass fucking people. Whereas the majority of time, if you're a fucking streamer, you sit and just talk nonstop all the time. Then once you get on with other people, now you actually have to pause and wait for other people to talk. It's fucking obnoxious.
You've made a giant mistake, which is girls with big tits, right? Girls with big tits.
That's kind of where I was going with it, Tom. So
you know what I mean? Like you bring those on for eye candy, and you have
we get one of those on this panel.
Exactly. You have to consider girls with big tits. You have to consider them a +1, right? Like they're just a +1.
In the Ethan,
they don't factor into the conversation.
But through the Ethan Hassan Piker debate arc or whatever, I've been watching people reacting to those debates, which have been, mind-numbing, but also good for content. But then they'll watch other standalone content from Denims, Mike from PA, Hassan himself, and the amount of dead air is insane. To the point that I think I'm streaming wrong, because these people have tens of thousands of live viewers, right? So I just need to go live, and then I just need to watch other people's content and then just not say anything for hours at a time. And apparently that's the way to be most successful.
Just lean back, be like, bro, that's fucked up. How can he say that? What's with that?
Just every 5 minutes.
That's what Destiny does. That's literally what Destiny does. I've watched this guy review 10 of my videos, and every time I'm like, oh, he reviewed my video, that's cool, and I go pull it up, and he says 5 words in the 2-hour fucking video. It's obnoxious.
We're doing it wrong. We're working way too hard.
And then I do, yeah, and then I'll go and review something, and then I'll get comments afterwards who are like, "Bro, why do you keep talking?" I'm like, "I don't know. I really don't know."
It's my stream, dumbass.
Yes, I don't know why people would come to my stream to hear me fucking talk. This is weird. I agree.
Now let's respect the commentary community. Let's give them their due.
No,
I do watch Chud. I do watch Queeman. I do watch Nick Diorio, and they do have substantive. They will take an hour-long video. They'll make it 3 hours. So they do have
anything
commentary.
Substantive. There's nothing. They have commentary, just nothing substantive.
I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for my chat to just destroy me, because I don't think I've ever gotten through a reaction video of anything more than a half hour. Because anything if you want me to review a debate, you better give me 6 hours for an hour video. I'm EFAP at this point. But I mean, you get the audience.
Every 12 seconds you pause.
Dude, it's like every time somebody says something dumb, you know what I mean? So yeah, every 12 seconds, and then I go into a fucking tirade about it. I mean, it's just the thing is that you get
also,
the audience.
Also, you have to pause Andy them too. You have to make sure that you pause it and say the right thing before they say it, so everybody knows you know it. You didn't you didn't get the answer from them. You knew it before they did.
So who's hosting? Who's doing the intro?
That would be me. Okay, so are we all good to go?
Yeah, it's Sunday.
I'm ready. You might see me jamming mashed potatoes in my face, but besides that, I'm ready.
That's all fine with me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Coliseum, a new show for people to come and debate politics and the current ideas of the day. Today we have with us Counterpoints. He runs a 40k Warhammer channel and does political content. TomFoolery, a political YouTuber who makes movies and does a call-in debate show. And Fabian Liberty, a political streamer who streams on Twitch. Do you want to add anything to that, by the way, Fabian Liberty? I'm just not as familiar.
Yeah,
with
first of all, I don't stream on Twitch, and I haven't in like 2 years or like a year. I'm on YouTube. Just Google Fabian Liberty, you'll find me. I'm a libertarian anarcho-capitalist. I do a lot of philosophy talk, bullshit, reactions, and debates. Yeah, like any other political streamer.
Okay, wonderful. And today we're talking Trump and tariffs. So we'll start off with something super easy. What are tariffs? So, we'll just throw like the easiest ball down the road for you guys.
Well, what, you want one of us to take it? Because I mean, as far as I understand it, bear in mind I'm a layperson, but it's an added cost to a good that you're importing into a country that then adds cost to that subsequent good. The argument has been who has paid for it. Trump and his cronies have been arguing that it's the foreign countries who will somehow pay in order to have their goods come to America. But then what effectively happens, what we've learned, what people have been screaming about for 6 months, is that it's the importer who pays for it, and they just pass that cost on to the consumer. So we've seen an insane decrease in commercial traffic, and we've also seen, or we're about to see, because he keeps turning tariffs on and off over and again, we're about to see a substantive increase in the cost of goods that we import from overseas.
Yeah, that seems about right to me. Do you have anything to add, Fabian, Tom?
I mean, just it's a tax on imports. It's
I mean, like if you're looking for just a definition, it's a tax, and taxes are theft, right? If you want me to just be as ANCAP as possible here, but jokes aside, it's not a joke. I mean it, but I understand to all the rest of you it's a joke. But no, I love this discussion on tariffs. I've been really excited about the fact that tariffs have kind of like entered the mainstream talking point as a libertarian. And the reason I love this discussion on tariffs is I've watched the entire left magically understand what trickle-down economics actually means the moment tariffs came in, right? Like they were like, it is impossible for us to understand or comprehend this insane concept that like, if we just make the rich pay their fair share, everything's great. But like, and then Republicans be like, hey, if you tax the wealthy, they have less money to invest in the economy, they have less money to put in the stock market, they have less money to make their businesses grow, and that means less growth, that means less jobs, that means goods and services cost more money relative to your income, and they're all like, that's crazy talk, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then when a populist JD Vance fucking dude comes in and suggests tariffs are going to save everything, magically they understand how taxes work. And so I've loved this because the left is 99% right on tariffs. They're just completely dishonest about it because they won't admit that the exact same logic that they apply to tariffs is the exact same logic that they need to apply on taxing the rich and making the rich pay their fair share.
Really, I think overall that's like a fair enough point logically, but the problem is that like even the MAGA, what they do with this is that they take this and say, oh, the liberals hate tariffs, they're all against tariffs. Well, here's Nancy Pelosi saying she likes tariffs, here's Hillary Clinton saying she likes tariffs. It's like, but nobody's against tariffs, they're against the way that Trump is using tariffs. They're the Oh yeah, so okay, sorry. Liberal, no liberal is against tariffs. They're against the way that Trump is using tariffs, where he's using it as like a bludgeon against other countries, and then doing flat tariffs, not targeted tariffs. He's he's saying one thing one moment and then a different thing another moment, saying he wants to use it for border security one moment, and then the next moment it's to bring back manufacturing, and then it's to lower the interest rates, and it's like it's the way that he's using it, and just like fucking 30% flat tariffs. That is insane. Like that is just an insane. But when we're talking about tariffs, like 2%, 3% targeted tariffs, or even if Trump used tariffs in the way that he's using it as a bludgeon, but it was like against China to stop them from stealing IP or something like this, like these are ways that I'm totally in favor of tariffs. It's just that the way that he's using them is kind of there's no possible way he's actually going to achieve anything.
Yeah, so one of the concerns that we talked about before this panel is we didn't have like a diehard MAGA person to represent their position, and so we might have too much agreement. But I think I can articulate the way that I think tariffs could be used or at least the argument for them, right? So kind of similar to Tom, where you can use them against your rivals, against your enemies, like all that kind of stuff as leverage geopolitically. And then also there's some things that we do want to subsidize or incentivize to be produced domestically. We've obviously had things like during COVID-19, we had all those medical goods and services that we just didn't produce them anymore in the United States. Same thing with like semiconductors and microchips and all that kind of stuff. Those are also things that we should produce domestically. Now, the thing about it is, there's another thing, or there's another tool that we could be using that we're not, which is government subsidization and then incentivization through tax structure. So basically, if you produce semiconductors in the United States of America, you could have like zero taxes, and also will give you very low interest rate loans or grants in order to build facilities domestically in the United States. It doesn't have to be we tax Taiwanese or tax Chinese vital goods that we use all the time. We can use other tools.
So I don't disagree with either of what you're saying in principle is like an internal critique. Obviously, I'm against tariffs in general. I don't mind tariffs when they're used, kind of as you stated, tomfoolery, as a means of a negotiating tactic to, like I'm against IP as well. But at the same time, if the entire world economy is going to be IP, and then China is going to have every industry from like, Huawei with a lot is probably the one everybody's aware of, but there are tons of other companies in China that steal like DRAM, that steal military secrets, that are constantly stealing IP. I don't look at that as theft, but when the entire world is playing one game and then China's playing another game, it does become like a comparative advantage. And if we're going to bully people into not committing fraud, right? Temu is another example of, how China used products in a loophole of products under $800. So they're bringing entire shipping lanes of products that were immune to going through customs. And that was one of the big part of the tariff deal that Trump did, was the de minimis loophole, right? Like I do hear what you were saying in the idea that like, well, the left isn't for this flat tariff thing, but it honestly, like the problem is, and this is a double-edged sword, is that your critique is with Trump's lying and rhetoric, not with tariffs and not with the economic policies. And everyone pretends that they're mad about the economic policies and the tariffs and all of these things, when really what they're mad about is the fact that Trump is incredibly unclear about what he's doing, and the fact that Trump is lying about everything that he's doing. Because Trump, out of one side of his mouth, will praise tariffs as this thing that's going to save the nation, but then when you look at the policies that he's doing, it is very clear that at least part of it, maybe not all of it, but at least a significant portion of it is a means of renegotiating horrendous trade deals and many of our presumed allies bending us over and fucking us over with all forms of tariffs. Now, him using that chart of like import-export shit is another example of Trump being retarded or lying, but it's like, it's hard to tell to what degree is it the art of the deal, and to what degree is it him just being a bull in a china shop, and then to what degree is he just dumb. I don't know like what percentage of which is
the guy still thinks that
but what I do know is that like most of what you're describing does seem to be kind of how he's acting. Not what he's saying, but the way in which he is acting does seem to be like, okay, we're going to come out and then we're going to threaten everybody, and then we're going to do a 90-day freeze. Well, why is there a 90-day freeze? Is it because Trump's worried about the stock market and popularity? Maybe, but it seems more like he's giving 90 days for people to negotiate trade agreements with him. And you see the same thing
and
with,
so
with him making
dude,
the
I didn't come
factories immune.
Okay, I love you parasocially. Yeah. I'm happy we got to meet in person, but I didn't come for the Fabian lecture hour. I would also like to engage. So you've said some interesting things that I want to engage
go fuck
with.
Yourself. Like, just say it. Like, it's fine. Like, there's only 3 of us here. We have all the time.
Okay,
Fuck yourself and say it. Both of those.
Yeah, but I don't want to listen to you for 10 minutes at a time and then respond. So one of the more interesting things that you said is the fact that Trump argues out of both sides of his mouth, where he says on one hand that we're making an even playing field, we're going to be onshoring jobs, we're going to revitalize the American economy, we're going to create the golden age for America. But then he's also saying like, oh, but I'm also going to be negotiating these super sweet deals, and then as a result, we're going to create an even more free trade market. And I do think the other irony that you've pointed out is that oftentimes like economic protectionist arguments do come from the left, but it seems like the entire Democrat Party understood free trade in reference to global economics instantaneously and started becoming free, like international free traders. And so, it's kind of funny. I feel like the Democrats are caught in a hypocrisy, like an economic hypocrisy, but I feel like Trump is doing what he does best or worse, which is holding two positions simultaneously and then saying whatever one is most convenient depending on who he's talking to.
You guys
Well,
actually.
and I think you're. Well, I don't. Yeah, I know we're going off on a whole thing, but your I think your points are fair. Like it is true. I would say that like it's mostly going to be the dishonesty from Trump and like the way that he deals with things that is the bigger problem for most of us. But we're not. Obviously, we're arguing the economics because there's people who believe in what he's saying. And so we're having to like have these economic arguments to actually go over the fact that like what he says just can't be true. Like one of the biggest problems that I have with this is the idea that that we're in such a horrible circumstance right now. We're in such dire straits that we have to do one of the most extreme economic things, the most extreme economic thing of any of our lifetimes, and that we're doing this to maybe lower interest rates, and then also because we need to bring back manufacturing when supposedly, according to Elon Musk, manufacturing is going to be gone in 10 years, and two, we have a labor shortage right now. We have too many jobs and not enough people to work them, and did you see the already poll?
Did you see the poll where effectively they surveyed a bunch of Americans? Like, do you think it would be good in order to onshore a bunch of manufacturing jobs? And it had like 80-90% approval. And then it was like, do you think that your life would be better if you worked inside a factory? And it had like 20% approval. And it's because everybody has this like rose tinted view of like Detroit and the Rust Belt during the peak where they're building cars and they just got done with World War II and their union uncle or union grandpa is making $60 an hour to rivet, cars and trucks. And, he has a boat hatch
and everything.
Yeah. Like they're imagining like the 1950s and 60s, but then they ask like, hey, do you want to give up your fake, they call it a fake email job. Do you want to give up your fake email job in order to go do that shit? And then everybody's like, nah.
I've never heard that before. Where did that phrase come from? Fake email job. I just heard that the other day.
It came from all those HR girls who were posting TikToks of them at the pool responding to emails. It was a TikTok thing.
Fake email job.
Yeah,
okay.
So we have an economy that I think in many ways is built on a house of cards, right? We have a predominantly service industry or software selling, industry in America. We don't manufacture a lot compared to our GDP and compared to our population. And so in a way that is less real, right? It is our position, our economy is incumbent upon the US dollar being the reserve currency, traded in OPEC plus and around world, relative world peace. Obviously there are conflicts that are going on, but, world peace insofar as it means that, international trade to most of the countries is going
world peace that's beneficial to us.
Right. And so, so I do think that there is a growing nihilism and fear that this has shifted in so far of a direction that our economy is just kind of layers of, investment of imaginary investments and, selling software solutions to, other countries that, China could steal at any moment and could catch up to us in the game. And all of a sudden Silicon Valley, there's nothing tangible or real in a sense of like our entire tech industry if China steals all our shit and then happens to get ahead of us, in a year or two in terms of innovation. And so we don't have an economy of material exports. And so I think when COVID occurred, a lot of conservative minded people, they saw the genuine threat of that. They saw growing tensions between Taiwan and China. They saw that our medical industry was incumbent upon whether or not China decided to ship us face masks or our own medicine or things of that nature. And they saw that, a lot of jobs, a lot of people that had those quote unquote fake email jobs started working from home and weren't really doing much productive. And yet the wheel kept turning. And then, and this, there was a growing awareness of what is an essential job, right? I think the American person started looking at the world around them and said, what are we doing? Like I can see DEI and women, in middle management over top of women in middle management over top of women in middle management. And they're all having jobs telling us how to behave because there's a lot of women in the office place and like nothing actually getting done.
See, hold on. This is
exports, but it's IP, I would say.
No, as a part of this this perspective, I would say this is a popular perspective. But as somebody who ended up working from home during the during COVID, I would say that what happened to the people with the quote unquote bullshit email jobs. I guess I had a bullshit email job, but we saw why the fuck are we getting into a car to drive 45 minutes to burn gasoline? That's extra 100%. Insurance. That's extra gas. That's extra this. That's extra that. What's that?
I said 100%. It's a loss of productivity. A lot of these jobs just don't require you to be in the office.
And I can be, I'm sure they have stats on it, but I can be, and I was in some degrees, either 90% or more productive from home during peak times. But that's because I understood the flow of the job and how it works, and I didn't have somebody breathing down my neck, et cetera, et cetera. And so for the work from home people, when I see all this fucking conservative thing, and we're not going to let people work from home, it's like, fuck you. Like when I was working from home, I was just as productive as what I was in the office. And if anything, there was less bullshit. So it feels like, boomer brain where they're like, back in my day, we did X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and that's why we need to keep doing it. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a real economic argument.
Record, I'm not making that argument. Though, I'm saying I think people started. I think
it's parallel.
It's more about this is what people started seeing, right? I think what I mean to say is that there are I'm not saying that work from home.
I want to address something that you said that was more parallel than it was addressing anything direct. So what I would say though is that a substantive amount of the things that did shift to work from home though is the fact that the economy can still churn on, but we do know that some people need to show up. And what we're talking about is agricultural workers still need to show up, construction guys still need to show up, cops probably still need to show up, firefighters still need to show up, medical personnel still need to show up. And so there are tangible
servers. I mean
servers, restaurants, all that stuff.
Essential. Not to go on to a COVID rant because we're here to talk about tariffs, but every job is essential. I was trying to capture kind of what I think
a lot of it felt ephemeral.
What's sometimes missing from a conversation of is why are we?
What do you mean when you say essential though?
Every
when
job
you say every job is essential, is this just I feel like everybody's essential really? What is this? What does that mean?
What I mean is that when people started trying to categorize what is and isn't an essential job, it's a meaningless distinction because in a complex economy, everybody's job is incumbent upon everybody else's job. You can say, the firefighter's job is more essential than the waitress at Applebee's. But the fact of the matter is that the waitress at Applebee's is engaged in economic activity, and when that economic activity goes away,
you're not wrong. Hold on, wait. You're not wrong as far as economic activity goes, but it depends on period of time. Because if we're talking about in Georgia, we were only locked down for 2 weeks, and I do want to give it back to Leader because I know we went way off on a tangent here. We're nowhere close to tariffs anymore. But when it comes to how long this is for, that obviously is a big deal, a big part of it. In Georgia, we were locked down for 2 weeks. It's not that big of a deal to lock down, to shut down bars, to shut down bowling alleys, to shut down movie theaters, to shut down, concert halls, to shut down places like this that aren't really essential and are just kind of probably worsening the issue with that many people in a crowded area. But the people being able to get food, police.
I understand. Listen, I understand that I brought up a potentially contentious thing. I just want to set it aside. I disagree with you vehemently, but I don't think the reason that I brought it up is not to have a debate about COVID or lockdowns or what is or isn't an essential job. The reason I brought it up is that is an explanation as to why we are here, where we have a population that is becoming aware, but not necessarily fully aware of like the weaknesses of our economy, and why tariffs have latched onto the consciousness of the populace. Right?
They're not ANCAP yet.
Hold on, Fabian. I think that what we're bringing up, while parallel, is actually perfectly necessary for the conversation, because when we're talking about these things and this attitude that Tom kind of has, where it's like, well, we don't need this, that, the other open or whatever. Well, so much revenue and so much like economic energy is generated by these things. It's like, well, that person still has to eat. That person still has to pay their bills. They still have to keep their lights on and all that kind of shit.
It's not a big deal. If
Fabian, I'm making a point. I'm making a point, and I'm not done yet.
It's not a big deal.
So what happens when you have the free market? When you have the free market be challenged in the way that it is right now, where Trump is making all the goods that are necessary for those jobs to function more expensive, that's where like we could have really like second order, third order economic consequences from the tariffs that are going to fuck a lot of people up. And we're not even seeing the effects yet. Okay. We're only 90 days into his presidency. He declared like he was going to do the tariffs. Congress has not stepped in. He's waffled on it back and forth multiple times
for a while.
They stopped him from the process that he was using.
But if he continues down the route that he's going, and we do get tariff implementations, we could see an economic calamity like akin to the Great Recession or 2008 or COVID itself.
So Counterpoints has just stepped on one of the questions I've got here. So free trade agreements and trade agreements are agreements that can take up to 6 months to get a draft copy on. They rely heavily on the reliability of government and the time it takes to implement and uphold these agreements in the long term for the economic benefits of these agreements to materialize. These are usually the result of trade-offs where countries sort of agree to lower and higher tariffs on specific goods and industries as like part of an agreement. Sorry, I kind of got lost. How do you guys feel about the? Do you think there is lasting damage to the world trade order with the volatility of recent U.S. trade policy?
So let me respond and start. Right. Yeah. So the thing is that I don't want to be like a fence sitter on this issue, but I'm kind of forced to be a fence sitter on this issue because like truth requires it, right? Which is that the left is conveniently not discussing an economic reality that has occurred over 60 years, which is that we have absolutely allowed a lot of other countries to bully us into uneven distribution in trade. There's a great book called The Four Little Dragons, which, discusses how East Asian market kind of came to be abusing all of the free trade, where we engaged in free trade and they didn't, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong. And it's true in Europe as well. Like there have been like, especially our meat and dairy industry, which ratcheted up after mad cow disease. And even after that was taken care of, kind of never really truly ratcheted back down to earlier levels. And so we've been fucked in trade agreements for a long time. And so the question is like, I don't disagree that a rapid, we're gonna do these tariffs, we're gonna do all these things, is going to have economically devastating impact, because that's just true. But it's also important to note that we are already suffering from the damage of non-free trade, and we have been suffering from that for a while. And that was fine when our economy was a lot stronger. But with the Belt and Road,
I want to ask this question though.
China,
I want to ask this question.
So much more trade that, like, yeah.
So
we have to
hold on.
engage in that reality.
So we're talking about like international competition when it comes to like goods and services and all that kind of stuff. And there's no doubt in my mind that American goods and services would be more competitive if other countries didn't engage in tariffs. That's obviously true. It's just almost economically true. But what I'm wondering,
taxes and other stuff too that are basically tariffs, but they don't call them tariffs.
But what I'm wondering though is let's use Vietnam as an example, okay? So Vietnam was a pretty underdeveloped economy 50 years ago or whatever when they gained independence, so to speak. They've developed substantively over the past 50 years. I almost guarantee you that if we look at their currency is probably 1/100th or 1/20th ours, right? And so no matter what, like I guarantee you that a Coca-Cola sells for 5 cents over there, what it would, whereas here it costs, $1.99 or some shit, right? Now, my point though being is that like, are we truly getting fucked by not being able to sell an American produced good for the price that we sell it in America, compared to Vietnam? Their labor is probably 95% reduced compared to ours, and therefore we're getting an incredibly cheap product because we're able to import from them. Like, are we truly getting fucked?
This is one of the dumbest things that's come up throughout this, is all of a sudden people realize that things are upcharged after they're made and that we're not getting things for the price that they're made for. Like, there's videos all over TikTok, all over Twitter, all over YouTube of people like, one of the outcomes of these tariffs is that we found out that these Gucci bags are made in Hong Kong for $1,300, yet they're sold for $1,800. You could just fly to Hong Kong and get it for $1,300. You're gonna pay more in fucking flights by the end of the day, but yes, they have to make money off this thing, and that is, I think, the bigger deal of the tariffs.
It seems like you're not actually contributing to the conversation. You're just dunking on dumb people on Twitter. Can you needle that thread so it's actually an argument?
Well,
I was trying to farm dubs.
I totally lost my. I was in the middle of a thought process and I totally forgot what I even just said or where I was actually heading to. I have no idea what the
you're talking about. Upcharges where effectively like Americans are able to get insane.
Okay, yes. So if they're actually like concerned about these prices and like the price differences and everything, obviously the tariffs are going to be the thing that like drives the prices up, and it's gonna, as you said when you're talking about second and third, like we're not just it's not just going to end up like having higher costs for the products that will likely end up raising the price of the product itself, but then also there's a ton of other things that end up getting imported as well, just for simple products, like when it comes to like what you're cleaning with, or machinery that you're buying, or coloring for shirts or whatever. There's all of these like extra things that people don't consider as well that will all just keep driving prices up more and more and more.
You still haven't made any argument. So I guess I'll respond to what to what Connor's saying, because you've just explained reality that libertarians have been, and Republicans even, have been preaching for 100 years. Yeah, obviously things get marked up when they move places. That doesn't really have much to do with tariffs, right? When we're talking about tariffs, we're talking about a downward pressure on trade. Right. Whenever you institute a tariff on any product, right, it's an upward pressure on price, I guess you could say, but it's a downward pressure on the movement of goods, right? Because it is, it's a basic supply and demand equation. And when you do something to artificially engage in the market to increase price, right, you're shifting the demand curve over. Right, the supply curve over. You're reducing supply, and thus it increases price even more than just the flat increase in price. So, like, when I say we're getting fucked over by tariffs, I'm not talking about the fact that there's a markup so that companies can make a profit for shipping and distribution, and and make profit off of the fact that they have lower productivity of labor and a low skill, low wage labor or something, so they're doing something cheaper, because if we did it here in America it would cost more, because the demand for the demand for low labor is kind of non-existent, with the exception of like fruit pickers in Florida or something, right? What I'm saying when we're getting fucked is that there is this extra thing added in that reduces trade, that reduces economic growth and output, and reduces our exports. And that is other countries implementing some form of a tariff, be it a VAT tax, be it some regulation, be it some tax that you have to pay at customs. It's like a flat tax, right? There are things other than just tariffs, right? Because tariffs are kind of a simplistic way of understanding it. But obviously when things go through customs, that's a cost, right? Like goods have a day that they have to be stored on a boat, and all of these things. But
Fabian, what
costs,
I'm trying to cut at is it worth the trade-off? So it is having access to Vietnamese, Taiwanese, well, not Taiwanese because they probably have expensive labor. They're a pretty developed economy, but they develop pretty interesting goods. But I'm saying is having access to cheap labor. So as an example, somebody in Vietnam can survive off of 6 cents an hour, so they can manufacture it for 6 cents an hour. So is it an advantage to have that cheap of a good coming to the United States, even if I live in Orlando, so let's just pretend that citrus is a thing. Let's say that a local orange only costs to them costs 20 cents, but for American orange it costs 50 cents already because we have a higher cost, but it makes it they also have a tariff that makes our oranges uncompetitive, and so the Vietnamese market isn't even interested in our goods.
Let's say there's 100 countries, right? And 99 of these countries can produce a good for $1 an hour, and then the 100th country can produce the good for 10 cents an hour. Does it matter that they have a tariff that increases that price to 20 cents an hour when it's still a fifth of the fucking price in that country to produce that good? And if we were no, we're not doing trade with them, or we're going to put a massive tariff, and we had to shift it elsewhere, we would get actually a more expensive good than just eating the tariff because the labor there is so cheap. And that's a fair argument.
So are you making an argument for the negotiations? Because effectively, what I'm reading from this is ideally, even our tariffs aren't going to necessarily fuck over the prices that we're importing because we're talking about the labor being so low.
I'm trying to steel man your position, right? If Vietnam could produce something so cheap, but they also had a tariff, should we really demonize them for that tariff when if we retaliate and goods are having to go to another country, we actually end up paying more because we lose access to that market? Is that
so do you have a common sense answer for why we should even do that?
Yes. So the problem is that this is high time preference thinking. And so you are correct in a short-term economic calculation that what you are losing in terms of the trade agreement is less than what you would be losing in other places. The problem with that is what happens when you iterate that game over an extended period of time, right? So we have Kuznets curve. And so the more economic activity that occurs in a country, the quicker we get to lowering the Gini coefficient and having income inequality go away, industrialization, new technologies, and things of that nature. So you're not wrong that in the short term, we can benefit from a country that happens to have tariffs. Because
but what happens to the American economy in the meantime?
Right. There is a cost to the economic productivity anytime you have a downward pressure, an upward pressure on price, which means less activity, which means less growth, which means it takes us longer before that becomes an industrialized nation that kind of joins the rest of us in the first world. So in the immediacy, you're correct, but it's high time preference thinking. It doesn't work in the long term.
I mean, just to sort of just to talk about your language for a bit there. When you say you add a tariff onto that you're a good you're importing, so I guess to put it in Trump's perspective, he's well, we're actually originally what he said was that we're going to put tariffs on these countries because they tariff us, but that really wasn't what he was doing. He was putting tariffs on countries who basically exported a lot to the US, more than the US bought from them, and that was how he produced his outcome. But when you're buying a ton of goods from, say, Vietnam, so you buy a million I don't know shirts from Vietnam for 50 cents a piece. They get to the US tariffs them. The idea is that so at that point the person paying the price is the US consumer, and the manufacturers
Vietnam.
of and
Everyone
Vietnam.
pays the price.
But the original, my problem with this is that usually when these agreements were put into place a long time before Trump got into office, and that when these agreements were originally negotiated, they were a series of trade-offs and concessions on tariff rates, and essentially to sort of negotiate where would these things be at. And Trump comes in and he's like, well, I feel as if the US is getting a raw deal out of this because we're exporting less to these countries. So we're going to tariff you again, sort of throwing into chaos the system, throwing into chaos like the US economy, because now there's like blanket tariffs on like every stage of like production in the US, and the US consumer is going to pay for that. But I guess to sort of sum this up in a neat bow.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. It's fine. I basically finished my point. Go for it. Cal.
Well, so what I was going to say is this is the thrust of I think what even I am sympathetic to a lot of the arguments that Trump makes in reference to the economy, and also even what Fabian is saying. It's like, well, what is the American economy truly based off of? And it seems like if we ask ourselves that question seriously, it seems like it's based off of services. It seems like it's based off of like digital stuff that's like kind of intangible and really ephemeral. It also feels like it's the military industrial complex. It also feels like for some, we are very lucky that we have a really strong agricultural backbone where even if we became like North Korean poor overnight, we still have enough land mass to give food to all of our people. So what is the American economy really backed by? And so I think the anxiety that we're kind of pointing to here with Trump doing these moves is that since it's based on bullshit, if you call bluff on it, the secondary and third order consequences are going to be disastrous. Because just as an example, Tesla and car manufacturers, Trump's acting like all of his tariffs are going to suddenly onshore all of this auto manufacturing. But even the auto manufacturers who manufacture in the United States, they say, hey, buddy, you're hitting all the raw materials that we import in order to manufacture the automobile, so you're screwing us too. So our prices are going up as well. So there's like economic behavior that he wants to incentivize, but he doesn't understand how complex the market is because, frankly, in a free market, it's supposed to be so complex that barely anybody can understand it because there's so many participants. There's no one way to track all of it.
Right. I'm glad that you agree with me that central planning is inefficient because the free market is superior. But like,
despite memes, I'm not a socialist or a communist. I'm neither.
Well, you're definitely a socialist, but you're just a socialist light.
Socialism is not when the government does stuff. But anyway.
Yeah, it's when the government does stuff.
That's pretty much what it is, right? When the government interferes in the market to fix market externalities because it believes that there are contradictions in capitalism that only the state can
also
use
called
as a means of
capitalism.
Getting away from capitalism, that's fucking socialism. It's hilarious when people are like try to meme on it, but it's just like socialism's not socialism. Okay. Nevertheless, like the problem is that there is this assumption that we have that like trade. Like I can agree with the left if they're like Trump should have taken a more scalpel approach instead of a sledgehammer approach. But in order to have that conversation, you'd have to have honesty from the left, which is something that I've never seen. And the thing is
wait,
that,
but
like,
that's not, I don't even think that's a good enough like thing to respond to, because what is it that you actually think Trump is trying to achieve? Like, what do you think the goal actually is of like what he's doing?
I think that Trump is looking at our economic situation, looking at the massive growth of China going from like a relatively, 1/4 of the trade in like 2000 to beating us in world trade, right? Like in the last 25 years, they have gone from producing like something like 25% of the goods to like 57, 56. Like they're out trading us. I think he's looking at the successes of the Belt and Road Initiative as opposed to kind of the American International Monetary Fund bullying campaign, USAID, things like that we use to like try and bully countries. I think he's looking at the Saudi, he's always had a very good relationship with Saudi Arabia, as much as I hate that, especially like Kushner and Brookfield, and things like that, those connections. And so what I think he is doing is I think he is coming in as an egomaniacal psycho to usher in the change from the American world empire to the American empire. I think he is seeing the writing on the wall that the global empire is not something America can maintain any longer. And so I think most of his policies are designed to combat China, whilst at the same time not go after the things that we need. Like, you know, he made exceptions for like all the big tech companies and stuff, right? I think that's why he's talking about Panama. That's why he's talking about Greenland. That's why he's memeing, I hope, about Canada, despite the fact that he's friends with Carney and Jared Kushner, again, have a really cozy relationship. So we'll see how that works. But I think what he is attempting to do is use tariffs and use all of these things to stop getting a raw deal and transition over to that. That's what I think. That's my best guess. Nobody really knows, obviously.
But you do, when you say that, you are saying that you think that he is trying to get manufacturing back into the country, like that actually is his end goal, to try to bring manufacturing back so that we're actually creating more things here, right?
Or to reshape the global economy so America is competitive.
I don't think so. I think Trump's lying about that. I don't think that he thinks that any of that shit's actually going to come back to America. What I think is...
I just mean, when you bring up like China as an example, I just want to clarify why I'm asking this, because when you bring up China... Yes, I understand. I understand. I'm just saying that when you use like China as an example for something that he thinks he's competing with, right? Obviously, a lot of what they did is just try to like source everything from their own country. They try to create everything in their own country so that they're able to export more. And so I think that when you say that like he's trying to be on par with them, that he actually is trying to bring all the manufacturing here so that we're exporting.
I think when I say the American empire, I don't mean the United States.
Fabian, I want to make this point. I think you're extending too much intention to Trump on the front end. I don't think. I think
I'm just going to clarify my position real quick.
Just let him finish.
Yeah. So when I say the American empire, I don't mean the United States of America. I think that Trump has seen the writing on the wall as far as the Middle East and Africa and in East Asia is concerned, and he's trying to shore up more power and control in North and South America and pull back in other places. There you go. That's it.
Okay. What were you going to say, Connor?
What's open?
Yeah, sorry, I'm muting myself in between, just so you guys don't have to hear me making weird mouth sounds while I'm eating. But the thing about it is, I think that Fabian's giving Trump too much credit, whereas like you're thinking that he's being thoughtful about what he's going to be able to accomplish in 4 years. I'm not sure that he's thinking that. I think sometimes I think he believes his own bullshit, where he legitimately sees himself as like a new Julius Caesar,
what do you
new
think
Napoleon.
He's trying to achieve?
Well, I think he's trying to achieve everything that he says he's trying to achieve. He's trying to be remembered as a great man of history who was willing to reshape the global order to America's benefit. Unfortunately, I think that this is one of my frustrations with Trump, is that America
believe his own bullshit.
Yeah, America is an oil tanker and he's trying to drive it like a speedboat. And I think what's going to happen is the economic consequences of what he's doing right now is going to be so painful that people are going to turn on him in the midterms. And as a result, he's going to be a lame duck president for the last 2 years of his presidency. And then also people like even JD Vance, even his, like, if they tap him on the shoulder and he is Donald Trump's spiritual successor, he's not going to try to do all the crazy economic bullshit that Trump did, because he's going to get a tap on the shoulder from rich people who helped put him in office, and they're going to say, we're not doing that again. You can say whatever crazy shit you want to do about immigrants. You can say whatever you want to say about MAGA. You can say whatever you want to say about, like, creating better economic opportunities for American first and all that kind of crap. But there's no way that we're letting you do like an international haphazard trade war and you're going to get our backing. And I think JD Vance is the kind of person who he craves power so much that he would not try to break those people to him. He would break to them.
Econ articles?
Yeah, I have. I think that when the right people tap him on the shoulder, that he's gonna break.
Yeah, I mean that's fair if you think that Vance is a coward, but and I wouldn't even necessarily disagree with you, but I mean, like, most of these like anti-free trade ideas seem more likely to be coming from Vance than anybody else, or at the very least
what's
supported
funny,
by him, right? Like these are more
one of
Vance
his interviews
econ policies than they are Trump policies.
Watching one of his interviews, what was so interesting about it, I think this was before they even got elected. one of the reporters was like, hey, like this is going to screw over a substantive amount of the American economy. And Vance looked that person dead in the eyeballs and he was like, yeah, probably, but I don't care because I think it's what's necessary. And then he actually went on to like a pretty passionate argument about how our economy is reliant on slave labor for agriculture and for construction. And it shouldn't be that way. These should be like dignified jobs with dignified wages for American workers. But I think what you're going to find is that a lot of people valorize this as an economic theory, but the construction companies don't want it. The agricultural companies don't want it. And on top of that, I don't even think the American worker wants it. The American worker would rather have Jose, doing shingle work for $10 an hour, getting sunburnt in the middle of summer, rather than be up on a roof doing it for $30 an hour. I don't think there's that many people who want to do roofs.
Yeah, I think the problem is that what we have here is a classic example of the government creates problems, and then the government is trying to solve those problems by creating more policies for the problems they themselves created. And the
I
biggest
think
issue,
that these
no, hold on.
These economic issues are infinitely more substantive than just the government intervening.
Yeah, no, I'll go ahead and make the argument. Right. So the biggest problem is that when I say the government, I don't mean the United States government. I'm talking about governments throughout the world, trade organizations and things of that nature. So what we have is, we have the Doha Agreement in 2001. It has been 24 years roughly since the Doha Agreement, and the World Trade Organization still hasn't figured out how to get any of the, hit any deadlines or any substantive, movement on, tariffs and subsidy agreements in agriculture throughout the world. Right. Like we have this fantasy that like Trump is coming in and like shaking up this stable system. But especially when it comes to agriculture, especially like we've let the whole world fuck us over with tariffs on agriculture, especially meat and dairy. And then at the same time, what we've done is take tax money and then give money to farms and farming subsidies to try and counteract this other problem that is created from a lack of free trade. And so I don't agree with Trump's tactics here, but the thing that I find so like distasteful about the overall conversation, I'm not necessarily accusing you, Tomfoolery, or you, but I just mean like in general, is that there's a lack of understanding of the economic reality. And really what we have is the left has become the reactionary right, and that they're just like tariffs bad, Trump bad. And there's very little discussion on how we got here so that we can actually have a conversation about where we need to go.
I think your solution is worse than your cure is worse than the disease.
Free trade. What you think?
Yeah. The one area that you don't want efficiency is food.
You
always want a surplus in food.
Can I clip that, chat?
You always want a surplus in food.
Can I get a clip? The one area you don't want efficiency is the most.
Yeah, you always and then clip this immediately after it. You always want a surplus in food. You always want a surplus.
We throw away more than we consume.
If you look at historically, like the things that human beings have been concerned with their entire lives, it's effectively like getting food, getting shelter, getting water. That's how we existed for hundreds of thousands of years.
How much surplus?
How much surplus? I mean, I think a reasonable amount of surplus. But whatever is like not like extreme. I mean, I would say plus 10%, plus 20%.
Okay,
on top of your needs.
Where are you getting the idea that it is okay to make some people in the world starve, some people lose their jobs, some people never be able to own a home, so that the government can implement policies that the market doesn't want? Because
I'm saying the opposite.
Believe that we need 10 or 20% surplus in
when you say what the market doesn't want, like, because there's some protections.
Well, of course, I'm
for,
assuming
like,
that the market doesn't want it because he's talking about using government intervention to force it. So obviously, by definition, the market would.
Let me explain the idea because he's not understanding. It's my turn. He's asking me about my idea.
Give an example. I understand.
No, I don't want you to give an example. I want to explain what I said. So he heard inefficiency and then presumed, I don't know what the hell you presumed. But what I'm saying is that the United States, let's say that we knock down all of the free trade barriers. Let's say that every single country is producing with no taxes added and we had access to the entire world market. I would still want the government to subsidize the production of food because I would rather waste food than waste human life.
I mean, to be fair to Counterpoints' argument here,
that would be a waste of human life.
It's not every country.
Yeah.
Every country.
Why are you confused by this?
I'm not confused by it. I'm just saying you're arguing to waste human life, to presumably save human life beyond what the market desires.
How do you waste human life by subsidizing food production?
$3
they're getting
because
paid
every
for.
fucking retards on this. In 2001, it was the liberals and leftists advocating for protectionist policy in the WTO riot.
What it is that people
Bernie
want
Sanders
or desire. That is
what
just
people want or desire is oftentimes stupid. And on top of that, hold on. I'm just going to tell you how stupid. No, I'm going to tell you, listen. This isn't a particularly spicy panel because we picked a dry topic, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you how fucking stupid this is. You're saying that because a McDonald's worker has a 10% income tax, therefore he technically has to work longer in order to provide for taxes or whatever, or that a rich person has to pay that income tax in order to do that. I am killing them when I am taking those tax dollars and then I'm putting it towards subsidization of food. Whereas what would happen, because I'm just going to be looking at history here, is when we don't subsidize food, when we don't make sure that we have a surplus, people starve to death. Okay, so there would be way more people who would die if people just did what they wanted to do versus incentivizing pro-social behavior. The fact that I even have to explain this to you and you have to be like, you want people to die, is retarded. It's absolutely retarded.
Let me just respond because I've been called stupid and retarded a bunch. Let me just be very.
I said your idea was retarded. Moderate the panel for a while now.
I'll be very brief, right? And what all I'm saying is simply this, right? Is first of all, history doesn't agree with you. History shows that the more we introduce free market capitalism, the less we have central planners trying to do things like prepare for the coming plagues or the coming droughts, and the less we have, nobility and aristocracy.
You're wrong already. You're wrong already. The Dust Bowl was caused by the free market, you dumbass. The Dust Bowl was caused by the market going after cash crops and then doing the same crop in the same ground over and over and over again, and nobody checking or regulating what they did. You're fucking wrong. You're wrong, and you're acting like you're right, and you're being smug about it, which is fucking crazy.
Well, okay, so again, yes, there are always.
So again, except for the only example in the early 20th and late 19th century in which exactly what I said is the fucking opposite.
I know when you're
I know when you're leader
losing,
get in.
You
He's
scream
trying
and
to
interrupt and call people retards, right? But again,
okay,
you having anecdotal.
I know you're not retarded. That's why talking to you is so fucking frustrating. I said your ideas were retarded.
I get it.
Okay,
stop acting like a toddler.
Leader's trying to moderate real quick. What I'm getting.
Yeah, that's fine. If leader wants to moderate in here, that's fine. I was just going to respond, but we have a toddler in here, so I don't know why you get invited to anything at this point.
I mean, okay. So what I will say is that I think that I'll get in this real quickly. I think that food security is a national issue that most countries take pretty seriously. Countries don't necessarily want to be dependent on imports of food from other countries, just because if other countries turn hostile, they can sort of leverage your food or your food prices and such. So usually when it comes to the specific issue of food, there is sort of a degree of subsidization or tariffs that go along. I don't think food is necessarily a good indicator for tariffs and world trade on a whole. I think.
Are you moderating a debate, or are you just interrupting to say that I agree with Connor? What the fuck is this?
I wanted to get that point in way before, but I did want to say
that's not moderating, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then I just wanted to pass it on. I wanted to interrupt the conversation to say that I agree with this person and then pass it on. What is this?
That's what tons of other mods do. That's not weird.
No, I just think it's gay and it's not moderating.
Fabian,
I'm sorry. We all just want to sit and listen to the two of you talk for another 30 minutes straight. That would be great.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine to say that's gotten heated, move on to tomfoolery. That's moderating. What you just did is just biased bullshit.
Biased bullshit?
He's allowed to give his take.
This is the challenge, guys. This is the challenge. This is the challenge: is when you have a moderator who, and I'm not saying anything about Leader. Leader's doing great, but what I would say, this is why we typically, especially debate panelists, prefer it where like the roles are clear, because when you debate but you also moderate, then you find yourself in a debate with a moderator, and then you don't know where the lines are about engaging because you could piss them off, and then they start moderating you harder because you disagree on something. So that's where I would just say we all need to pick a role. Are we debate panel participants or are we moderators?
He's not. Well, so he's hosting the panel and he's trying to like lead it in a direction while also moderating, but he's not muting people and telling them to like that they have to stop talking. Like he's not you guys went on for a while after he was trying to get in and he didn't mute anybody.
No, that's fine. I stopped to let the moderator moderate, and then all he did was agree with my opponent, and like that's bullshit. Like that's gay as fuck, man. Like I'm not mad. Like we're good. Like I was just saying, yeah.
I think if fit criticism is fairly fair. I did want to get in for like a while there, but can we, Tom? Did you have anything to add before we move on?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, when we're talking about like some sort of regulation, obviously we need some regulations from the government to make sure that they're taking care of their own people. Even when we're talking about like some of the tariffs from Canada on, I think it was eggs, like in dairy products, where they have like a hard cap on how much you can ship into their country, and then all of a sudden they're going to tariff you at like a 250% rate to try to protect their own farmers, to make sure that they're getting the majority of the consumers and that everybody else can't come in and flood their market with their own products. I think that makes sense for the country to like try to keep their own industries protected in that sort of way, because like Connor said, like you're going to end up giving them you're going to give other countries like a lot more power over your consumers.
I have a question, a genuine question for you. If so, the argument seems to be that there are certain goods or services that if you were to go to war with a country, that if you did not have the ability to produce that on your own, that this would be like devastating to you. But it seems to me that we only discuss one half of that coin, which is, okay, if we don't have economic protectionism to ensure that we have the ability to produce all our own food, produce all our own milk, have all our own water, etc., then, in the event that we go to war, we'll lack those resources to protect ourselves. But isn't the counterexample of that also true, which is when you intentionally subsidize your ability at self-sufficiency as opposed to progress and growth by having the cheapest goods at the cheapest prices or the highest quality and let the market go, that you are incentivizing a higher likelihood of going to war with those countries because you're trying to ensure your ability to do that?
I mean, when you say go to war, like you include like any sort of like trade war or something in that as well, I'm assuming, because I don't think it's just start rolling tanks into countries.
You could do both, right? You could just say just purely war or a trade war, right? But if the argument is if we don't, like, we need to protect it, so in the instance of a trade war or a real war, we have the ability to produce all those things for ourselves. But couldn't you just reverse that argument and say that by intentionally jacking up the prices on goods and services, by instituting tariffs or instituting economic protectionism, we make it more likely that our politicians go and commit war or commit trade wars?
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I can
just like saying like we want to like get better like military equipment outside of Russia, and then to protect all of these countries in NATO. But then we say, oh, but by giving them all of this military equipment, we're also making it more likely that Russia's going to get defensive about this, and then go out and start taking over cities in
That's
Ukraine.
That's not analogous. I'm just asking you to answer the question.
I think it is.
Fabian, yes, it's literally
you're
true.
saying that protecting this more makes it more likely that other people are going to want to go to war with us. And I think that
being more protectionist, the more industries. The answer is yes, Fabian. The answer is yes. Obviously, the more free trade, the more economies are intertwined, the less likely we are to go to war. The more independent that economy, the more independent economies are, the more likely they are to view the outside as aggressors or different tribes or whatever. The answer is 100% yes. But because we live in a spectrum-based, world, then of course we're still going to want to integrate our economies, relatively speaking, with a rival like China, because a war would be devastating. But just because we don't want war doesn't mean that we should integrate everything. I would never want to rely on China for food or for critical medical supplies just because it reduces the chances of war, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, like China is pretty dependent upon us for food. It's one of the big imports that they've had from us for a long time. And so that's kind of one of the things that protects us from going to war with China is that we sell them a lot of food. If we engage in a trade war and a bunch of tariffs, right, then we end up in a position where maybe China, secures its own supply lines, starts buying more food from closer allies like Russia or something. And,
this was literally the precursor to World War II, 100%.
Yeah. So so you agree, right? That so why is it that we value in a global world where there are all of these different trade partners that we value protectionism because of the chance that we might go to war but we don't necessarily have that other side of the conversation, which is that the more we engage in economic protectionism, the more we increase the likelihood that our politicians are comfortable with going to war.
Because there's obviously certain things that we don't want to effectively hand to our enemies as weapons. So the most obvious one is food. That's probably the most obvious one. The second one is defense technology, because we are the preeminent world power when it comes to defense technology. The other one that I would say is semiconductors and microchips, which is the problem right now, where I think Taiwan, correct me if I'm wrong, this is probably old lore, but I think Taiwan is one of the primary manufacturers of the world's most advanced microchips and semiconductors on the planet. And yet China keeps saber rattling about invading them. And if they did do that, then it would basically throw the entire world economy into a tailspin, which is why we're trying to onshore manufacturing of those specific goods. And by the way, I don't think I'm explaining anything that you don't comprehend, because the truth is that I think even you agree that if China was the dominant, if Chinese communism, their state capitalist communist bullshit that they're doing right now, if that dominated the world, it would be a worse place for you. I think you prefer,
sure. I obviously prefer.
These are still rivals
socialism
and enemies.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing is that I agree with you that the semiconductor issue is a particular interest to Western, mixed market economies, right? Obviously there's some production in Israel, there's some production in a couple other places, but overwhelmingly it's in Taiwan. And overwhelmingly the research and development is, done by companies similar to like Intel. And even though I'm an AMD fanboy, Intel does most of the government contracts. But I think, again, my solution to that would be to pull the government out of that completely, right? To stop having all of these government contracts towards Intel, right? I don't think we need subsidies to try and move manufacturing over here. We just need, we need less taxes and better education. And again, I think you get better education by removing money from the government.
But I want to test you on that. Okay. I want to test you on that, because a semiconductor is not technically nobody really needs a semiconductor to live. It's convenient. It enables high-end technology, but it's not something that we need. Right. And so you're saying that what we would do is we would just
all things are essential.
It's also a critical good from a defense perspective, but not from a survival perspective. So let's say that we just eliminate taxes on semiconductors, we eliminate taxes on microchips, but it's still not enough, because due to comparative advantage, Taiwan is still the best people who can create this good or product, but they are in a geographically, politically precarious area. How do we still not get turbo fucked the second that China invades them?
Yeah, I think
if we just rely on markets to guide our holy hands.
So I think, again, one of the problems that we have with capital investment in Western liberal democracies is that it is so regulated and that there is so much government involvement in it. I do agree that our current economic systems in most of the world, favor maintaining the status quo. What I will say though is that investors there's capital investment is based off of making a profit, obviously. And so Intel stock, Nvidia's stock, AMD's stock, hell, even Huawei's stock is based upon some of the smartest people in the world predicting that things are going to be fine in the next 6 months there. Now, building semiconductor factories with relatively good profit can take a year or two. But if I think that most of the people that are smarter than us, that went to MIT and then work for fucking ARK or work for fucking Vanguard or work for BlackRock, have put all of their money on the fact that at least in the next year or two, China's not going to do that. And if things and tensions really start to increase, they're going to pull their money out of those stocks because they don't want to lose money, and they're going to start investing in other people that produce the same product. So I think
you can see how principally
unrealistic.
Though.
I just think
you can still see
is unrealistic.
Okay, in some degree, I agree as well. I don't know if this is like an appeal to normalcy or something like that, but it is hard for me to like imagine a D-Day style amphibious assault of the island of Taiwan.
BlackRock and Vanguard are betting on the nothing ever happens stocks right now.
Sure, and by the way, I still think they're at probably a 95% certainty of correctness. I agree with you. But are we going to bet the future of the free world on that 95%? And that's where a level of preparedness that might not be, I don't know, efficient or frugal is something that I think the state is designed to do, where if there's a 5% chance that China will invade Taiwan in the next 5 years, and we will not have onshored manufacturing of semiconductors and microchips by that time, and it's a critical national defense asset, that's the kind of thing the government is actually designed for, is these externalities that the market doesn't really calculate because they think it's a low chance of happening.
I agree with you. The problem is that you're making a bet no matter what you do. And when you make a bet to tax or subsidize an industry to change behavior from the market, you're making a bet that your tax or your subsidization will pay off in the future, that there will be a return on investment that'll be better. And whenever you do that, somebody starves, somebody dies, somebody somewhere couldn't get a promotion. When you engage in what the market doesn't want,
is there a single American in the 20th century who has been taxed into starvation?
So let's look at
the answer is no. You can try to describe it to me.
We can look at. See, the problem is no. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. You just go to Appalachia, right? You can find people that
there are zero people in Appalachia who have died from starvation in the past 100 years that wasn't preventable through food pantries.
You're acting like a toddler again.
You think
you're acting like a toddler again?
Starved people to death in Appalachia?
You're acting like a toddler again. Okay.
Why? Because 300 people died in Appalachia in 1920.
You're acting like a toddler again and not letting people finish.
Why? Because you're wrong.
Again, you're acting like a child. So what? Let me just finish this very quickly. Okay. Right, you're correct. You're correct that in America, people are not starving because there are services that they can get to starve in America. But we are talking about a world economy, number one. Number two, what I'm saying is that every economic transaction where you remove our most valued goods away from their most valued means, that is degrowth economically. And when you engage in degrowth, there are people that are fucking addicted to heroin. There are people that, could have, their circumstances in life change and would have been different if they would have gotten that promotion or if they would have been able to make just a little bit more money. Whenever you were talking about economic degrowth, you were talking about sacrificing people's lives somewhere in the world, somewhere in the economy for your return on investment. That's the only argument that I'm making, is that you're betting either way. When you say we have to subsidize this industry, we have to protect this industry, what you're saying is that someone somewhere doesn't get a promotion, doesn't get that job, gets laid off. Something bad happens to somebody in terms of the real meaning of their life that they engage in.
I was basically gonna say what you're about to say. Counterpoints. I guess to sort of like to put it at every point, if in my opinion, if you sort of like look at what Fabian Liberty is saying at the brass tacks of it, he's saying that efficiencies in government really do matter, and ultimately, when you look at the U.S. economy as a whole, small differences in taxes or small benefits to like a large group of people would result in like meaningful differences to like a large number of people's lives. I guess I wouldn't. He has a very different way of articulating that. But what's your response to that?
Yeah, I think that we have a progressive tax structure for a reason. Anybody under 100K doesn't pay more than 10%. Well, anybody under 50K doesn't pay more than 10%. And oftentimes they're getting like tax subsidies where if they are on the verge of starvation, then they're effectively receiving money from the government. When you're talking about people who make money from 50K to 100K, they probably pay 10%. And so as a result, it's not going to be life or death. It's going to be like they're going to be able to eat that thing. Then also when it comes to people above that, they can get as high as like 30 or 40, but oftentimes there's tax incentive structures where you can reduce your tax burden by engaging in pro-social investments, either in charity or in research and development or in business stuff. So I don't believe our society is sufficiently complex that I don't think that I'm just going to accept that when a McDonald's worker is making $10 an hour and they give up $1 to the federal government or $2 to the government, that means that they're going to eat a gun because they're so suicidally deprived of the $2 an hour. I don't buy this argument. Also, I think it needs to be argued that when it comes to the government, there are things that are wildly inefficient that have been massively beneficial for humanity. When you're talking about disease research, when you're talking about like the creation of the nuclear bomb, we had no idea if that was going to work out. We had no idea whether or not we were going to be able to find and split the atom. And yet, as a result, we now have like fission technology, which has saved, probably millions or billions of lives. And then same thing with disease research. I'm sure that can be argued that it was subsidized by the state and millions or billions of lives have been saved. I think that it can also be argued that the space program, the things that we're engaging with right now, that was only because some fucking lunatic in the 1960s said, let's go to the moon and let's figure out how. There's not a single business person on the planet who would have thought, let's go to the fucking moon, because they would have been asking what's the return on investment. And yet now, half a century later, we're talking about having the Starship capacity, which is effectively another research and development boondoggle without an ROI. But guess what? That's going to enable humanity to potentially go to other planets and like ship cargo there. So the government does do things that are retarded if you think only through efficiency.
Hey,
but
leader,
it does awesome things, and you have to concede that, or else you're denying reality.
Hey, leader, remember how I opened this very discussion and I said the one thing I love about tariffs entering the conversation is how the left has magically understand the rationality of trickle-down economics, but they only apply it to tariffs. Yeah, that gish gallop is what I'm talking about. That right there.
I don't. I'm a fucking one of my a substantial amount of my degree is in business. Funny. I talk about economics as literally as you do. I don't know why you understand or you pretend that I'm like this fucking leftist who wants to do like a decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production, and yet somehow I understand the economy. I've understood the economy the whole time. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, that would contradict with your arguments, but that's okay.
Why? Because you're the one dickhead on the fucking planet who doesn't believe in taxes?
No, because you just
There's 12 of you. There's 12 of you.
You just reverted all of your own argumentation against tariffs and how it's passed on to the consumer through second and third order consequences to argue against me in a completely non sequitur about the means of how a progressive
No, it's not. It directly addressed your argument. No. I reject this, Fabian. I reject this.
You can reject it all you want.
No. Yeah, I reject it because I think that you just said something. You said, I'm going to talk, and your dumbass audience is going to understand me because they're going to suddenly become smarter, okay? So you said that whenever you tax someone, you are taking money out of their pocket, you're taking food off of their table, you are causing diseases and death and deprivation as a result of economic trade-offs. That's something that you said. And what I said is through the progressive tax structure and 20th century governance, what you said is demonstrably fucking false.
You're making
what you said is demonstrably false.
It's just not. It's just only midwits would believe you right now.
False.
It's so fucking funny. It's
No, hold on. Answer me this question. Answer me this question. Tell me how many people died from starvation in America in the 20th century as a result of taxation. Please answer me that question.
Nobody knows because we're talking about second and third order consequences. But if you look at it from a praxeological perspective,
how many would you
can
guess?
understand? You can understand that there are,
My guess is under a few thousand. You know what? I'm not going to ask you questions because you're going to just dodge. Okay, so I'm going to answer for you. Hey,
I know
how many
you're
people died from starvation in America? How many people died from starvation in America in the 20th century? Oh, a very few amount, maybe a few hundred or a few thousand. How many people were, basically saved through government-funded research of diseases? Probably tens of millions. I just answered your question. When you're talking about cost-benefit analyses, you're saying that I would rather have the 500 or the 1,000. Like, I would rather save their lives on principle rather than save the millions of people who have been saved through government intervention. Your cost-benefit analysis, your trolley problem is, I'm just going to let the trolley careen into the crowd and kill dozens of people because I don't even think that governance is a concept. It's fucking retarded, dude. Like, you're so wildly intelligent and so frustratingly stupid at the same time.
We're still going with the non sequiturs. Let me know if you ever want to come up with an argument.
It literally wasn't a non sequitur. It addressed you directly.
It's not a non sequitur. So let me turn it into a question then. So do you believe when it comes to like vaccines? Do you believe when it comes to vaccines like R&D? Do you believe when it comes to R&D, like medicine, things like that, like government has put tons of money into, like especially vaccines? Do you believe that we have saved more lives through this process than people who have starved from having too much debt or not having enough money?
I mean, I think the problem when you use starved is that you're only saying have. I would change the question to have lives been more meaningfully improved or not, right? And in that
you said starved.
Now you get
you said starved.
No. I gave starved as an example of a list of things that occur. Connor latched on to starved because he knew that, and then latched on to starved. And in the U.S., he went from the world economy just to the U.S. economy, and then got rid of all of the other things but starved, because he knew that there are not a lot of people that starve in the United States because we have a lot of welfare and redistribution programs, etc. So yeah, no, I reject just framing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here's another thing.
If it's starved,
you getting a ski-doo, somebody not starving to death is more important than you getting a ski-doo. It's true. You suffered by not being able to afford to get a ski-doo, but somebody else was able to eat food. You're right. You caught me.
This is the problem of talking about economic pressures and second and third order consequences. Like when a rich person buys a yacht, they go, oh, well, if we just tax them, you want to buy a yacht more than you want to help people like live and eat, we need to tax you so you can't afford a yacht so that we can buy like school lunch programs. Like, why do you want children to starve? But the thing is that when you actually look at how an economy works, you recognize that a rich person buying a yacht isn't just a rich person buying a yacht. It's paying dock workers, paying factory workers, paying the imports of the people that make steel. Like, there are all of these economic transactions that go into a rich person buying a yacht. And so when you pull money out of a rich person's pockets and you just say, we're going to put this towards a better cause, you have to recognize that every time you pull money out of the economy towards something, that you are taking money not just out of the rich person's pockets that's at the higher up end of their taxation, but you're taking money out of dock workers' pockets. You're taking money out of service workers' pockets. You're taking more money out of people that mine, precious metals in other countries. Like, that's what that cost is. And so if you're going to do a cost benefit analysis, you can't do a first order consequence of the economics of who buys what and then do second, third order consequences of all of the wonderful benefits of the government. You have to do like comparisons. I'm not even making an anarchist argument.
I'll just say it. I'm happy that the government taxes people between 10 and 40% in order to do R&D for the quote unquote greater good. right? I'm happy that they do it. I like that they do it. I like that there's a state. I like there's a government. I seriously think that 95% of the fucking population agrees with me. You're just stuck. Like, you read this book that you liked a lot and you're like, damn, that's my entire personality now. And then that's what happened. So, okay.
But you just made
Got
an
it.
argument
You
for
hate
me,
states.
right?
Understood.
See how he did a first order consequence analysis of taxation, and then in terms of what the government achieves, he does all of the second and third order consequences. You just proved me right.
Okay. Here's why. Because I can do second and third order, and you're asking me to do so, okay? Because dock workers, people in the economy, human beings are creatures. And as such, they are self-interested. So if they have an option between, like, let's say the dock worker, as an example, he has a choice. He can spend his money on his family, taking care of his kids, or he can blow all of his money on alcohol. Well, there's fuckloads of people who choose to, spend their money on drugs. I would say that we should intervene and say, no, he has a social responsibility to take care of his family. Therefore, we're going to effectuate this through the state. Also, same thing with like old people, disabled people. I think that this should be affected by the state, because if we were all self-interested, then we would basically let everybody who's disabled, stupid, dumb, annoying, we would either kill them or we would let them die. And so I'm perfectly fine with a moral arbiter stepping into society and saying, yeah, we actually are going to go ahead and take care of the needs of people who don't necessarily deserve it, because we believe it's the right thing to do. And as a result, we're going to direct the economy in order to do that. So your second, third order, fourth order consequences, yeah, I'm okay with it, because the truth is, you don't know what your fucking dock worker is going to do with his fucking money either.
I mean, and here the fascist rears its head, right? That we're
Am I a communist or a fascist? Can you pick one, and can you define either?
Yeah, I have for you plenty of times, but I'm not going to go into this.
It's okay. I pulled out an Admiral Gibbs argumentation because you're not as stupid as him. My apologies.
Yeah. So, and when I say the fascist rears its head, I was going to explain, right, is that you would love to use the socialist state to take money and engage in, centrally planning family values, right? Because the dock worker can't.
Yeah, I actually, you're right. I would like schools to teach that you should take care of your family.
Let me finish.
You're right.
Let me finish.
You're right. I think that's a good.
I know you're starting to get mad, but you really are interrupting a lot at this point. I mean,
but you're fucking annoying, so you kind of deserve it.
Well, the only thing that's annoying so far has been my arguments, right? I'm not like interrupting you. So
yeah, when you've acted like things are correct because you say them calmly, but they're dead wrong. Yeah, that's annoying.
So if you would like to let me speak, I would appreciate it. Stop.
I don't, but go ahead.
Okay. So anyways, this is the problem of centrally planning and socialism, is that, yeah, of course we can see examples of how, addicts or something, if they had more of their own money in their pocket, or if more yachts were purchased so that there were more dock worker jobs, they'd make more money. Yeah, some people are going to spend their money on stupid things. We see this with welfare all the time, right? We see so many like people abusing welfare, or people that are getting Social Security checks or Medicare, Medicaid checks that are also, the first of the month there's a spike in overdoses at the first of the month. Why is there a spike of overdoses and drugs at the first of every month? That's because that's when government checks come in, they get money, and then they go spend the money that we're, spending to make their lives better on drugs, and then they die because at the end of the month, their tolerance had gone down because they didn't have as much money for drugs.
Aren't you excited about that, though? Because then they're off of the dole? Isn't that a good day for you when a drug addict kills himself with drugs, because then you don't have to pay for him anymore? Isn't that awesome?
I think that's your opinion of libertarianism, and maybe that says more.
Well, I mean, no. That isn't my opinion of libertarianism. When the Libertarian Party of the United States of America talked about driver's licenses, they got booed. When people talked about how you shouldn't give heroin to children, they got booed. So this isn't my opinion of libertarians. This is libertarians doing it to them fucking selves.
Yeah, bringing up specific case examples of the LP, which I don't support, is again saying.
Oh, I'm happy you support an even more fringe, less relevant political group of libertarians. That's exciting. When do you guys expect to get more than 0.1% of the vote?
I've tried to talk economic sense this entire discussion. It seems like I'm hitting a wall, which is your head. I don't know what to tell you, buddy.
Okay. You act like I don't understand. I understand perfectly. You use the word non sequitur 3 times. I explained things that were directly relevant to your point. So, frankly, you can act smug and maybe your audience will buy into it, but I'm not buying it.
All right, so we've gotten a little bit far off topic, okay? I would like to sort of rein it in a little bit before we like drift off far away into like another sort of realm, if you will. What I want to talk about is how do you guys feel about, because this is a panel on tariffs. How do you guys feel about tariffs and dollar manipulation? And when countries like China lower their when China and other countries they engage in sort of like trade, a way they can sort of like engage in manipulation of trade volumes is they can lower or higher their currency to increase the volumes sold in other countries, because comparatively they'll be cheaper to like the US dollar. This isn't any, like, we've talked a lot about subsidies, we've talked a lot about tax and about taxation, but we haven't sort of dealt with like currency manipulation. Tom, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, actually, I literally don't. I haven't looked at much into the China currency manipulation part. So yeah, this is actually one thing that I don't have as much of an argument on.
I would say that currency manipulation is true. It does occur, but it is one of those things that's really hard to track. And because it's really hard to track, it is one of those things that a lot of people that are pro-tariff or pro, tough on China, especially stance, they kind of oversell it because it's hard to track. So I do agree that currency manipulation is a tactic that China has used. I mean, one of the people that was like super into this was actually Mitt Romney when he was running against Obama, because Obama had done so many deals with China, and this was like, coming up with, and I think he probably knew about some of the Solyndra stuff and how deeply embedded Obama was with, Chinese oligarchs so that he could enrich himself and his friends. And so, but again, Mitt Romney being the voice of reason is I find funny as well. But yeah, I would say that currency manipulation occurs, but it's hard. Like, what is currency manipulation? Is a means of increase in the money supply, right? By printing money, like central banking groups buying bonds, right? Like what they're doing is they're causing some form of inflation. There are other taxes that they use where taxes are different because you're using one currency, like using yuan over the US dollar. There are a lot of different ways that it occurs, but being able to define what the actual cost is and how much of it is occurring is kind of impossible, because there's a lot of muddied waters between what is monetary policy and what is currency manipulation to give it a competitive edge towards, people purchasing in the yuan. And so, yeah.
A good example of this, so like how China sort of did engage in like currency manipulation, is they would buy US dollars, and which would essentially create an increase in demand of the US dollar would go up, Chinese dollar would go down, and through this they were able to export more products to the US. That was sort of like the argument for like the Chinese pegging their pegging their, I think they did that. I seem to recall them pegging their they were like artificially keeping the yuan low for like a long period of time. I can't remember if they pegged it to the US dollar. I don't think they did that. But they did engage in a level of buying US dollars to keep it low. So I guess sort of like the overall thrust of this would be like it's not just through subsidies and tariffs that like countries can sort of engage in bad trade practices. But do you have? Were you done, Fabian? Can I move on to counterpoints, or do you have any points with that?
Well, I have more things to say because of what you said, but I don't want to not let him speak. So let him get in.
Well, the good news is it'll be short. I'm with Fabian in this regard, that I think that currency manipulation is very difficult to track. And as a result, it's almost like a game, in my opinion, not worth playing. I think the only currency manipulation that the United States should be doing is making sure that we have healthy enough economy in order to back our own dollar. And that's about it. If other people are going to screw with their currency, print more money, decrease money supply, burn stuff, hold treasury bonds, et cetera, let them get hoisted by their own petard. I don't think it's a game worth playing, because I do think it's actually an easy way to get burned as well, is through currency manipulation.
Well, so what are the downstream? One of the downstream effects, of example, of hoarding currency in an attempt to, keep the currency artificially low, is that it creates a deflationary effect on the United States dollar, not just in the country that you're deflating the currency, but in the global trade. And so, like, it can have a long-term, somewhat beneficial effect if we have too much inflation, right? If you define inflation as an increase in the money supply, and then you pull money out of circulation in some capacity, and you reduce the amount of economic transactions, you can increase the strength of your own currency because it's more stable and there's more transactions that are occurring. But at the same time, you can keep that money from going back into other places. And so, like, the problem is that, like, it's short-term thinking as far as I'm concerned to engage in currency manipulation, especially if it makes your currency less stable, which can be even more, in the long term can be even worse. Because, like, one of the worst things that could happen to the United States dollar right now is if OPEC Plus decides that they want to start trading in yuan instead of the USD as a reserve currency. That's about 2.34 trillion last time I checked in US dollars that is in the oil market in direct trading. But it's also important to recognize that most of the oil market isn't trading of substantive oil, but rather investment in markets on what we believe, on oil futures, kind of, right? Like what we think oil will be worth, what we think crude oil will be worth, what we think shale oil will be worth, et cetera, et cetera. And so we could be talking about something like $8-9 trillion moving back into the U.S. market, and that would be like hyperinflation. Like if OPEC Plus decided tomorrow we're only trading in yuan, and we see threats of this. I don't know if that's, like, I think those are mostly idle threats, but then we've seen them trade with Brazil in their own currency, right? And so some of this has already kind of occurred a little bit, and so the downstream effects of holding on to currency and making the currency, kind of like offshooting it back into the U.S. economy can have, like every time you do something, there's kind of like an equal and opposite reaction, right? No matter what you do, if you hold on to the currency, you cause the currency to deflate. With its natural inflation, that can be a good thing. So it can backfire on you. If you move it immediately back into the United States, right, then you have the opposite effect, which is in the short term, you have an inflationary effect. But it's stronger and more stable in the long term because there's less currency that can suddenly, have an influx into the market. So it's like currency manipulation is always a short-term gain, and more often than not, a long-term loss. And so I think with a lot of things, when we look at China's economy and we look at how they lie about everything, how they, their production is full of fraud, their materials are always like weak materials. I mean, we have tofu construction, we have, projects that are shit projects. I don't know that currency manipulation is as big a threat as people want to think that it is, because they need to gin up normies that don't understand much about economics, their anger and hatred at China, because it just sounds like another bad, evil thing China's doing, more than like the economic reality is that it's as devastating as we think it is.
Calling it manipulation is going to make it always sound like a big bag boogeyman. But I always thought that they were just trying to get to like a proportionality of the American dollar, and then they would eventually try to keep consistent with that proportionality so that everything stayed cheaper in their country and we would just keep buying their products. But
China's one of the countries that's worse than Donald Trump about saying one thing and doing another. Like, there are not many world leaders in the world that will say this is what their goal is, and then what they're actually doing behind the scenes is different. Like, worse than Trump, and Xi Jinping is one of those people, right? Like, so it's like and on top of that, all of the numbers on basically everything that come out of China is a lie because it's government controlled and they don't care about lying. So it's like trying to understand what China's doing is almost harder than trying to understand what Trump is doing, but we can kind of make good guesses based off of what they're doing in the world stage, as opposed to areas where we have less access to the information. So I agree with you that that's like a stated goal. I just don't know if I buy it.
Okay. I just don't see any other I don't see any other benefit to them in the long run. It seems like that's the only Like I just don't see. Yeah, I don't see any
you're
other
probably more
reason
right
for it.
because communists tend to do long-term thinking better than liberal democracies because they're not worried about the next election. I mean, Xi Jinping is a special case
Right.
because he's past his tenure and he's shouldn't even be in power. He just kind of illegal, and that's what all that Taiwan scare was really about. Anyways, they were never fucking planning on invading Taiwan, and investors knew that. What they needed is they needed to drum up an enemy so that they could drum up threat, so that he could justify maintaining his own position as the leader of China when he's past his tenure. And like technically speaking, they had to like redo some bylaws so that he could even stay in power. Like China does a lot of barking and no biting in a lot of areas. As far as I do want
to engage in some of the discussion on this point, even though it's
go
far
ahead.
off topic. I just would say, like, on the issue of China, it is I think they've done, at least since the start of year, at least 4 like semi-blockades of the country. And every year, sort of Xi gets into every year, sort of like Xi has a speech to basically the Communist Party and like the members there, and he talks about how he's reunification with Taiwan is like his utmost priority, and the fact that he's been increasing his military spending every year. I think it was like, I'm not sure about the past few years, but he was increasing his military spending by like 100% year on year for like a good number of years, and so we're still seeing like big increases to like the spending for military. So like, once again, far from the topic, but I don't know if they're
so
like if it's a completely
I agree with you.
noodle
I agree with you, right? If Xi Jinping, if the Communist Party, it doesn't even need to be him, if they genuinely believe that they could invade Taiwan and get away with it, I think they would. But if America is in any position to fight them and we have the desire to fight them, they're not going to do it. They're not going to fucking do it. And the only argument I need to that is to go watch someone else with a British or Australian or, European accent that sounds smarter than an American, right? That is comparing our Navy and Air Force versus theirs, right? Like China in an actual fucking war against us is either committed to using nuclear warheads or losing. That's it. Point blank, period. That like you can talk about the economic instability and like trade and things like that. And like there's a bit of an argument there, but like we could wipe China's Navy and Air Force out in like a few days. Like the difference in technology and just ships and in experience, because China does these little bullshit missions in the sea. Like we are constantly in some fucking aid or some conflict somewhere. Like our Navy is more experienced, way more technologically advanced. Our aircraft carriers are way fucking better. Everything is so much better. They do this because this maintains his power and maintains his ability to engage in certain practices.
The only thing though is I trust me, I'm a nothing ever happens bro. I love that nothing ever happens, but then I think one of the jokes that has been put on the internet is that what is it? It's like nothing ever happens for decades, and then everything happens in a week. Like that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's a meme, obviously, but I do think to some degree it's true. And the reason why I just want to, I'm probably like 80% with Fabian, but I'm always doubting myself on what's really true. And so as a result, I do just want to point out that China doesn't need to compete with a blue water navy. They don't need to compete with a 6th generation air fighter or whatever. What they need to do is they need to get paratroopers onto Taiwan, and then they need to flood the channel with. They don't even need military amphibious ships. They could just flood the channel with like literally civilian vessels. And what would happen is by the time that Taiwan is out of missiles and out of bombs and out of guns and out of gunpowder, and the United States is set to respond, literally China could flood the entire island with like millions of Chinese, not just PLA, but even Chinese citizens, just to like clog the war machine of the United States of America. And so as a result, I'm with you, but I'm just saying that like Taiwan is their backyard, not our backyard, and they also don't need to match us technologically in order to take Taiwan.
I agree with you. 2 caveats. Number one, I am not saying nothing ever happens, right? I am just saying that I don't think China actually thinks it'll happen. I think if China thought they could get away with it, they would, is what I said, right? If they thought they could get away with it, they would. I just don't think they can actually get away with it, but they use this bluster and they like beat their chest so that they can maintain power and so that they can continuously weaken Taiwan, right? You know, because they'll do this and they'll make it this existential threat, and then they'll change the rules on how many, you know, on like whether or not people can be communists or anti-communist party leaders in, you know, in the parliament in Taiwan, right? So they use a lot of big threats, and then they do this 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing, and they're doing a 10-year, 20-year plan with that. So I do agree with you in that regard. The other thing, though, just as a little bit of a caveat, you're right that they could take over Taiwan and just destroy Taiwan, but I think it's kind of similar to, you know, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It's like, why didn't Russia just level Ukraine? They could have. In the beginning, when the war first started, right before anybody was really involved, they could have flattened Kiev, but they're hoping to maintain infrastructure because they don't want to have to rebuild the entire country. Now, obviously, the situation is a little different, but
to that as well.
I think China is in a similar position. Why? Taiwan is a symbol, and like, and it would be good to take over Taiwan for them to shore up, you know, Chinese supremacy. But if the goal is to like have chip manufacturing, you can't fucking destroy all of Taiwan, right? Like, you have to maintain the infrastructure. And so like it has to be a drone war to take out forces.
Yeah, and one of the things that you just said too actually probably does play into the Chinese narrative about Taiwan, which is reunification, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know what their domestic propaganda looks like, but I have to assume that they're like, oh, the Taiwanese do want to rejoin us. They do want to rejoin our great society. They're actually our brothers. They've been propagandized by these capitalist, pigs who are advocating against their own class and self-interest and blah, 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 blah. So they probably don't actually want to level Taiwan, because that kind of goes against the narrative of like, they secretly want to join us.
Yeah. I mean, like, Chinese propaganda is like on a whole nother level that most Americans can't even understand. I saw this video that I thought was really funny, which was a child was like doing this like school project thing, and there were government leaders there, and it was a Chinese citizen, and he said, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, was kind of like what they were asking, and he said he wanted to be president of the United States of America, and like everyone panicked, and then the Chinese government official goes, he's like, look at how much Chinese pride this child has. He will take over America, and America will become China, and he will rule over America for the Chinese Communist Party. It's like they had to like fix the fuck up of allowing a kid to say that he wanted to be president of the U.S. Like, they live in a crippling fear of saying the wrong thing, and so I mean, it's so, and that is just part of the problem of of understanding things that goes on in China in general. I don't know I don't know what this has to do with currency manipulation, but it is what it is.
In defense, China is like the accused largest currency manipulator. And we're not just talking about like currency manipulation, is it good, is it bad? We're talking about like how are rival geopolitical entities vying on the world stage using currency manipulation.
Yeah, for sure. I just mean like bit of a tangent.
So like we've talked a little bit about tariffs and how they've sort of like, and the various sort of things that they affect and how they are implemented. But what we've also talked about is like Trump sort of like using the tariffs as like a negotiating tactic, right? And so from there, I'd like to spring point, should the US government be run the same as a business? Is that, and this is, what do you guys think about that one? Tom?
I say absolutely not. I mean, I think like that normally, I think like one of the easiest ways to try to like explain fascism to a lot of people, and I had this conversation with Adam and Sitch a while ago, where they kept saying like Trump's not a fascist. He just runs the country like a business. He's a businessman. I'm like, yeah, that's what that is. Like, I ran businesses for a long time. I hired a lot of people. I've had a lot of employees, and I always tell my audience, like, I used to consistently say, like, this is not a democracy. I am a dictator. Like, this is, I am an authoritarian. I tell you, this is how it is. That's how it goes. You don't like it, you can leave. You can tell me if you don't like it, but at the end of the day, I'm telling you what to do. And that's just kind of the end of the story. And so I think when we try to like run the country like a business. We end up having a lot of the issues that we're having now, where we're discounting a lot of our like normed democratic processes, where we use Congress to make a lot of decisions on things like tariffs, on things like what we do with things like USAID, or how we engage with other countries with trade. Like there's all of these things that should have a larger approach, with more people kind of engaging in that practice. And I don't like that Trump is just making it to where he's the only one who's making these decisions as though it's a business.
I'll go because I'm assuming Fabian will probably have a totally different answer than me. I also don't think it should be run like a business. However, I do think that there's obviously like business tactics that need to be incorporated. For instance, we should, despite us investing in R&D for projects that we don't know whether or not we're paying off, we should be asking about return on investment. We should be asking about, whether or not we're spending our money efficiently. We should have controllers and accountants who are making sure that we're not doing things. So for instance, working in the military, there was questionable property accounting decisions made in the war in Iraq, where effectively it was so expensive to get the gear over there in the first place that was barely used, that then we just destroyed the equipment or turned it over to the Iraqi army instead of utilizing it for an actually effective purpose. And I'm not talking about millions of dollars. I'm talking about billions, like billions with a B. And so when you're talking about that large of a financial entity, you 100% need free market concepts to be instituted. But oftentimes when we're talking about should it be run for a business, we effectively mean should it be profitable? And I don't think that I think the government actually exists specifically to ignore the profit motive and instead focus on what's good for society in general.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. That probably was the crux of the question. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm actually that far off from what you're saying, Connor, in terms of like, what do we do with the government that we have currently? The problem is like, I think you hit the nail on the head, actually, Tom, when you said that like a business is a dictatorship, because a business is a private property owner that, has exclusive control over property. And the moment that you try and say that property can have more than one owner, which is to say you make it public, you fall into contradiction, right? You fall into conflict, right? Some people want to use the business one way. Some people want to use the property another way. I mean, we can see this with like, legalizing drugs, and then there's like parks that are full of drugs. And it's like, well, what's going on here? It's like, well, you created public property that everyone has a right to access. And then when you made some form of degeneracy legal, well, now you have this problem where degenerates want to use the property that they presumably have a right to use in a degenerate, fucked up way. And then parents have to go to the park and there's fucking needles on the ground. It's like, what do we do? Public property causes this conflict. And so to run the government like a business, if what you mean is there is one person that is deciding it, is very much very fascistic, right? The merger of the corporation and the state. I think the appropriate way to do that is to, obviously I'm an ANCAP, so my solution is going to be crazy, but correct, right? Which is that you want to get the people to operate things more like a business, not necessarily the government. And so, for example, I disagree with a lot of libertarians on borders, because I am not an open borders guy. I am a Hoppe and invitee system guy, which is, so my philosophy, and that's why my channel is named Fabian Liberty, because I believe in incrementalism. My philosophy is that insofar as the government controls things, it should control them not like a business, but it should try to get as close to private property rights for the citizens as is possible. And so, when Trump says, I want to run the government like a business, if he means it the way that you mean it, that's really bad. I think what he most likely is doing is saying a pithy bumper sticker slogan, which is, we are wasting money on $200,000 to some university to determine, how much blue dye in a water system is going to be a problem for a native frog species that doesn't even have like an ecological niche, and like we have crumbling roads. Like, I think that's kind of like more along the lines of what most conservatives say when they mean that. But I also agree that it's problematic when we talk about the state as like this, this vague posting, like our president vague posts all of his ideas. He doesn't actually tell us what he's going to do. As much as I hate Biden, he came out with like, he just like, when he said, I want to do infrastructure, it was like, here's a 2,000-page bill full of retarded amounts of redundancies and bureaucracy, but at least it was something I could fucking look at. Whereas Trump just vague posts, and then the next day he's like, I've got a new executive order. And you're like, fuck, what's going to happen now? Right. So like, I think both are problematic, right? I think it's problematic to have
based on the first 100 days, he probably meant both. Like with Trump running, saying that he wants to run the country like a business, based on the first 100 days, I would say I think he meant both.
But I mean, I think Doge is a perfect example. Whether or not you agree with how effective Doge has been a perfect example of the other aspect, right? Where it's like, we are wasting a lot of money on dumb shit, and I want to run this more efficiently. Because why is it businesses run efficiently compared to the state? Because the incentive structure is a profit loss mechanism, and the government doesn't have that profit loss mechanism. What the mechanism they have for fixing something is, I will lose my budget if I'm so bad that it eventually trickles down to an elected representative losing office if they don't fix this problem. And that is like really far connected from like an incentive to fix shit. Whereas a business, if you don't fix it, you lose your job. And if the company doesn't fix it, another company, they get destroyed. And so I think
the democratic process is the incentive, though, isn't it? Like you win an election, you're gonna get. Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Is like if you're some person in like when Democrats or Republicans write a bill, right? They don't usually write a bill that details an exact description of how policies will be implemented. They come up with a vague policy, and then they hand it over to the executive branch, which is full of people that have been working somewhere for 20 years with Democrats and Republicans in charge. A whole bunch of GS11s through GS13s, that are just kind of like doing a thing. And it's like the only way, if there's a problem and inefficiency in the way that that's done, talk to any government employee. They'll be like, well, I learned my lesson. I'm not going to rock the boat. So nobody does anything unless it becomes such a fucking problem that it eventually like has to be solved by a politician in order to gain some election. I think a good example of this was Bernie Sanders and John McCain reforming the VA. Right? It's like the VA had gotten so fucking bad that it eventually became a political issue that Democrats and Republicans needed to work together on to increase the efficiency of the VA. And it's still bad.
Which, by the way,
but it's better.
Yeah. No, that crazy example, because I just used VA healthcare for the first time in a decade, because a decade and a half ago, it was so bad. It might as well have been like, change your socks, take Motrin, walk it off, you fucking pussy. That was pretty much like VA healthcare a decade and a half ago. Whereas now, I walked in, they updated the electronic system. They updated the way that you can see doctors. So effectively, I went from a sassy black lady behind the counter telling me to go fuck myself to a dude being like, oh yeah, I can get you an appointment. And actually, we have an appointment open within 2 weeks, which was an insanely different experience.
Guy, yeah.
Yeah, but that's where I think Fabian's right. It's kind of like, what do you say? With a private institution, you cannot not be profitable. The only thing that can give you a little bit of wiggle room is an investor who gives you like latitude to try different ideas out. But with the government, you can fail almost indefinitely until someone calls you out on it. And so that's where we can incorporate free market business culture into the government. But I think the VA should not have gotten as bad as it needed to, but maybe that's what it needed to get its ass kicked into gear.
Well, one of the things that also, like I brought up Bernie Sanders and John McCain reform, but also one of the things that helped the VA is that in Trump's first term, he made it to where if you cannot get a VA appointment within 90 days, that the VA is forced to allow a person to go outside of the VA healthcare system to go to a private institution, right? And so this was like and when you do that, that's a loss of budget for the VA hospital. And so all of a sudden there was a little bit of an incentive to like make sure people got their appointments within 90 days or they were going to lose out on budget, because at the end of the year, like the end of the year, their budget was going to go down because it was going to be basically subsidize healthcare out of the VA system, right? So that's another example of how you can run the government like a business, right? Is that you will offshoot it to businesses if they can't get their act together. And that has some increased effect. Like just because I'm an ANCAP, I'm not going to sit here and be like, everything the government does is 100% bad all the time. I mean, if you ask me a certain way, I will say that, right? But I also live in reality and I recognize that there are, positions and policies that move us in a better direction and those that move us in a worse direction. And so, yeah, this idea of like running the country as a business is, I think, the real problem, and I think this is highlighted especially with Trump's presidency, is what does that mean? So often we have these vague platitudes that, especially like the MAGA crowd, because it's populism. Populism has returned to America. We haven't seen it since Andrew Jackson and the Civil War, and it's back. And populism it's not necessarily good or bad. It just is. It is a recognition that the system is so fucking broken and that people are no longer playing the game of the current system. It can turn into fascism. We've seen that historically. It can turn into communism. We've seen that historically. I'm hoping it turns into like, some limited government, something closer to libertarianism because they're sick of the elites and their power, right? Like, it can turn into a lot of things, but that is what we are dealing with. And the biggest problem of populism is that it is an ideology that essentially says the elites or the Jews or the fucking whatever term you use for people in power, depending upon, I'm not saying the elites are the Jews. I'm just saying that is a populist message.
Your scapegoat of choice.
Right, like whatever your scapegoat of choice at the top. These are the bad people. And anything we associate with the bad people is something we have to stop. And anything we associate with the people is something we need to do. And that's why we're seeing tariffs. And that's why we're seeing this call for domestic manufacturing. Because there are dudes right now that are 23 years old and they can't get a girl to talk to them. They have zero, because, dating apps require them to be like 6'5" chads, and they don't know where they're going to get a fucking job. They know that they're probably never going to be able to afford a house because they didn't get a 4.0 and get like some great college degree. They don't know where their fucking opportunities are. They see the boomers laughing at them as they go on cruises and spend all the money, and they are wondering they have nothing to lose because they have nothing. And we have to engage with that.
I would say in a lot of the examples that you're giving, though, these are things that I would say are very similar to my experience within working in corporations, where you have a group of people that are making decisions for you, and then that group hands it over to you, having absolutely no idea how you're going to get it done or anything about your part of the process. Like lots of people talk about, like, oh, if we want to run things like businesses, we're going to get rid of, all of the bureaucracy, while like businesses are filled with just tons of like mid-level management and more people overseeing each other and doing different parts of each business separately. And I think a lot of what the government does, where we're talking about like, the separations of power and the fact that those parts are probably going to give us a lot less inefficiency for sure. Like,
yeah, I want to
part
you talk about
definitely is
corporations,
true, but we have those parts. The priority isn't efficiency in a lot of these.
Can I share something insane? I want to share something insane with a class that I researched recently for my debate with the Conno boy. So labor force participation rate is one of the key arguments that people make when they're arguing against Nordic countries, because they have insanely high labor force participation rates. They're at like 65. I think Sweden is at like 71 or something like that. They're literally a full 5 or 10% higher than us. But then when you look at the American domestic market, since the 1950s until now, we've had a substantive decrease in labor force participation rate in a certain segment of the population. Do you know what the segment of the population is?
The millennials.
No, it's white
gonna be like
men
white
over
males.
55. It's boomers. If you look at the labor force participation
Fucking
rate,
retiring.
no, I'm serious. Look this up. Labor force participation rate by age and gender. And what you have is you have women in the 50s and 60s. You have their labor force participation rate going up, right? Because it's becoming normal that women join the workforce. Then you look at labor force participation rate with young people, and it's gone down, but it's gone down like 1 or 2 points. If you look at labor force participation rate by people who are over the age of 55, it drops by like 10%. And so as a result,
they're retiring. Like they're
yeah, but in the 50s you didn't fucking retire. You just worked until you were dead. And so the people who are telling you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and stop being such a pussy, and back in my day I walked uphill both ways and all this bullshit, those are the people who are retiring, and they're the first and only generation to fucking retire. Pussies.
Yeah, I mean, they're on cruises. I mean, part of that is cultural.
They had
homogeneity.
COVID
Part
that
of
kind of pushed them into.
right?
Sorry for getting pissy, but I did think it was a hilarious statistic.
I mean,
COVID did
if
push
I wanted
these
to be
people into like retirement a little bit faster too.
I mean, if I wanted to be a little racist, right, or not racist, just looking, demographics specifically, you know what I mean? If you compare whites in both countries, the labor participation rate is basically the same. When you're talking about higher labor participation rates in countries that are predominantly white versus us,
not in Sweden.
It's like, yeah, but it's like 63% amongst whites in America, right? Like,
sure,
relatively
no, you're right, but
Everybody
I
in Sweden
think in
is white.
2008 it was high 60s. And I think a lot of people got really discouraged with the economic collapse of 2008, and so as a result, they just didn't rejoin the workforce. But I'm just telling you, if you look at labor force participation rate by age, gender, and you put it back to 1950, the substantive decrease is in retirement-aged men.
Yeah, well, I mean that makes sense. White men have a lot of property in America. So the incentive for them to stay working is not there.
But the only reason why, sorry if I'm enjoying this too much for everybody else, maybe you don't think it's as funny or ironic as I do, but the reason why I'm laughing is because they're using the rhetoric of the greatest generation in order to describe their economic experience. But if you look at when the great welfare state first started, the boomers effectively took advantage of it at the beginning, and they took advantage of it at the end. They did not have this, work until you drop, silent generation, greatest generation mentality.
I mean, look at the poll, look at the exit poll data from the latest Canadian election between Pierre Poilievre and Carney, right? Who was elbows up? Who gave the left control of Canada? It was boomers.
Well, I mean, I think the argument is that it's Trump, but what do you?
Yeah, the argument that it's Trump is
but you're
hilarious.
saying it's right-wing men?
No. What I'm saying is that people under the age of 35 were all voting conservative. Like they're all like the women. Obviously there's a shift in liberal democracies where women are going further left and men are going further right. But even with that, the younger generation is the populist generation. That's how populism works, right?
Well,
the younger
which, by the way,
generation, in Canada is going, hey, fucking, I'll never be able to buy a home because Chinese are buying them all up. Whether that's true or not, or as the reason why they can't, that's what they're saying. And the boomers are saying, but Trump is so evil and we need to protect trans kids. And like 30-year-old, 25-year-old men are like, I don't give a fuck about trans kids if I can't buy a house. I don't care. It's not about whether or not I'm woke or not woke. It's about whether or not can I fucking eat. And what we are seeing is a growing shift where the left is becoming more and more cultural and less engaged in talking about the economic reality. You don't see a lot of left-wing people. Like 10 years ago, AOC was shouting about Amazon and, workers and things like that. You don't see a lot of union, fucking bosses coming together with the Democrats, right? It's cultural issues and things like that. And and it, you know, I know you like to bring up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like a thing you talk about, right? Just think about it, right? The boomers are at the top. They've self-actualized. They can worry about the trans kids. They can worry about these cultural issues. And this is why I think so many you have young people and populous people are supporting tariffs, not because tariffs are a good idea, but because they realize the system is broken and doesn't work for them. And they don't
want to
give
do
a fuck
anything
if the stock market goes down when they don't own stocks. Like they just want something to smash this system so that they can have a hope of something.
Yeah, I think that Trump, descriptively, this is one of the things that actually frustrates me most about him, is that descriptively, he nails like the rage of like the working class, middle class, all that kind of stuff. I just think it's much like most extremists. I just think his solutions are dog shit. And what I'm scared of is effectively with populism being normalized, which I think social media, you know, democratizes information and democratizes opinion. So this was probably something that was going to happen to some degree. But as someone who was raised Republican, I was taught to fear the will of the mob. I was taught to fear people who feel totally righteous about what they're doing in vast numbers to the point that they will burn a system down. Because that's effectively like, when you look at history, that's what happened during the French Revolution. That's what happened during the anti-monarchic revolutions in Europe, which you can say is good in the outcome. But literally like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people died horribly because of an angry mob that thought they were righteous.
I think once again, I'm going to participate in discussion for just a moment. I think a good example of like...
You don't have to announce it every time. We got the gist of it at the beginning.
It's chill.
Now we have to throw it in there.
I'm not mad at you, brother. It rolls off the back. It's fine.
It's good. So when Trump sort of like implemented a lot of these tariffs, and a lot of the reason why I think it's bad is that there's been a lot of changes over a short period of time to the specifics of the tariffs themselves. He starts them, stops them, raises them, lowers them. Reciprocal tariffs, not reciprocal tariffs. You saw the Mexico-Canada sort of Mexico-Canada, it was on, then it was off, then it was on again. It's 25%. Then we're going to like include reciprocal tariffs. It's going to go higher. And like through all this, you've got like your average businessman who's trying to sort of like maybe he's making electronic parts, or he's like trying to you know, run a pub, okay? And suddenly he can't predict with any certainty at all how much a barrel's going to cost, how much is it going to cost to get the parts in for his for you know the copper in to get like his semiconductor in the next year. So the purchase orders and like the amount he expects to pay, and thereby the amount he expects to sort of like charge the American public is just completely out of whack. And that is sort of like the system that for which America is going through right now. That is sort of like the rolling process. And it hasn't even ended yet. You've still got 25% in on the Europe one. There's like a negotiation for like 25%. I think it stops on like May 5th or something like that, if I'm correct. And businesses need a good level of reliability, and they need to be able to know what to expect from the government in relation to their like what they're buying for their goods, to be able to sell products reliably, to be able to make purchase orders. If they don't have this information, then like in some cases they'll just shut down. So that's where I don't know. In terms of like why I think like America shouldn't be run as a business is because like sort of you've got someone trying to negotiate tariffs with like other countries, where he's like, I want to sort of like use tariffs as like a means to sort of like stranglehold, you know, and sort of beat countries into submission into a favorable trade agreement that I think's favorable. But I'm going to do that. Well, I'm going to do that to the entire world at once. So I'm not going to negotiate with, say, Mexico or Taiwan or one country at a time. He's going to collectively tariff everyone and hope they don't collectively negotiate against the United States while he does it. And
well, yeah, but
sorry, go on.
We've monopolized 95% of the time. So if you want to tell me to shut the fuck up, go ahead. But the funny thing is, like, why not totally fuck something up and then half fix it and then claim victory. And I swear to God, this is Trump's thing. It's like we're gonna build the border wall and we're gonna have Mexico pay for it. Well, guess what's gonna happen if we don't have a secure border wall the second a Democrat gets in there? We're going right back to the same problem. We're gonna take Greenland and we're gonna do what we want with it. Well, now we've pissed off the Danes and the Greenlanders more than ever. I don't think we're getting shit out of them by the time Trump is done. Oh, I'm gonna negotiate with Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin and I'm gonna stop all the wars. Well, Kim Jong-un is still the despot of a hermit kingdom, and Vladimir Putin effectively said, yeah, Trump, I'm going to negotiate with you, and then he just kept doing whatever the fuck he wanted to do on the background. But he can say, like, listen, I tried, guys, I tried. Vladimir just didn't want it. And then all of his rhetoric it'll be called out by everybody except for his base, because he's like a pseudo-messianic figure. And I want to give you guys another interesting thing that I bumped into before I wrap up, which is basically like, a lot of people appeal to biblical style messianic like vibes for Trump, that he's here to save America. But something that I heard from a conservative theologian is that oftentimes great men are not sent to save a country. They're sent to chastise it. And so if you look at mythology, or if you look at like biblical, even biblical heroes, they will take on the mantle of responsibility, displease God in some way, and the country that they're leading will pay a massive price. And it's actually easier for me to conceptualize Trump as a chastisement of America, because that's what he feels like.
I think at least one of the things that you brought up that I think is probably a waking up point for a lot of people is that Trump actually does a really good job at representing the American people and the things that they're afraid of. He's really good at like taking the things that they're terrified of and fear mongering, targeting those areas. I can't remember the name of the alt-right guy. I always blank on his name. I always want to call him Manafort, but the guy who was part of Trump's initial group of people when he first started running in 2015. What was his name? You guys, he hangs out with Laura Loomer and all of them all the time. He was one of the.
Well, listen, man. I'm thinking of a half a dozen schizos. I'm thinking of the My Pillow guy. I'm thinking of Bannon. No. I'm thinking of
Bannon. That's who it was. So Bannon was actually in the room. Like if you actually read some of Bob Woodward's books, like Bannon was one of the people who was in the room convincing Trump to run for president, and he was like one of the things that they made a big deal about is that like we're just going to use polling for the people that we believe are going to be your base, see what it is they care about, and then just target rhetoric at that stuff. Regardless of whether or not like we're actually fixing that, it doesn't matter. We can like name anything that'll fix it. Whatever it is that we're trying to do, we'll fix it. But we're like targeting the things that they want. And they did tons and tons of like very targeted polling towards the people that they believe are going to be his base and the people that will vote for him. And he's done a great job at talking about those problems. But as you said, what he actually believes to be the source of those problems is not like he's very bad at that, or just doesn't even care about it probably. But that is something that is really pushed, like is something that progressives always complain about with Democrats, is they call them the do nothing Democrats, that they're never actually like targeting the things that the Americans want. They're never actually like making a big enough deal and fighting hard enough for the things that the American people fought for. And so this is something that I think is pushing at least Democrats to start addressing those things a little bit more. And I think that was part of Kamala's platform, is she was actually like doing a lot more like targeted things on,
what my fear is though,
and crap like that, that populism will start to rise on the left.
Well, not just that. Actually, I think that would borderline be the thing that would like kick the Democrats in the ass, as if populism started rising on the left and they actually had some viable figures in a populist left. What I'm scared of, though, is that I love DC. I've traveled 3 times so far, but the reason why I love it.
Or a bad thing?
Well, this is gonna be a bad thing because I can feel it creeping into my soul. Okay, so what happens though is you get around a bunch of people who are really smart, who talk about politics all day, who talk about geopoliticals all day, and it just becomes like wargaming conversations about the exterior world that probably doesn't connect with the actual world. And so what I'm worried about with Democrats in particular is I think they're so used to the figureheads who are in power. They're so used to like the DC mentality of just like wargaming how to get votes that they kind of forgot like what they're actually fighting for. They're supposed to actually be fighting for, like, I don't know, the working class of America, the minorities of America, like all that kind of stuff. But why would you do that when that's hard work, when you can just go to DC and talk to a bunch of policy nerds and get drunk and get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for consulting fees? And so that's where I'm worried that like this disconnect between the political class and the political class and the actual population is only going to be solved through an emergency. That's the only thing it's going to be solved through, which could be a rise of the populist left.
So I want to,
That would be horrible.
I guess I want to critique, leader. I want to critique your example a little bit, because I do think you're, I think you're way off actually. And I don't even mean this as an insulting way. I think your view of the average American small business owner is radically different than the way that they actually feel. I do agree that corporations and hedge funds and large businesses are, dealing with the volatility of the market, and they're heavily affected, especially when they're incorporated and their stocks are public, in how much investment capital they have, what the value of their stock is to secure loans in the future, right? These economies of scale, big businesses, are far more affected by a volatile market in the short term than small businesses are. You're not wrong that like when I have to purchase products and I don't know what those products are going to cost in the future, that volatility is a problem. But what's way more of a problem is if I'm a multi-billion-dollar business and most of my money is tied up in investment and loans, where I have all of these interest rates and things based off of the value of my stocks. And then I have stock calls where if my stocks go too low, all of a sudden those loans, I have to pay them out immediately. I mean, we saw something similar with, Democrats were celebrating, hoping, praying that Tesla stock would go low enough that they would then force Twitter to sell. Right, that's an example of how big business operates. They were hoping that enough vandalism and enough destruction of, Tesla and, the companies that they loved 5 years ago for saving the environment, now that they absolutely hate because he's a fascist or some shit, right? They were really hoping that those businesses would fail just enough from stock options that it would that it would force them to sell Twitter and they could have, their propaganda outlet back. And so I think what the average businessman is looking at is he's looking at maybe not the Austrian business cycle, right? Maybe he's not understanding the Austrian business cycle as a whole, but I think the average businessman of a small business knows that the game is rigged against him. That like these big companies have fucking loans and they have economies of scale and they have friends who are politicians. Like if let's say I'm a farmer and and I'm a dairy farmer, I can't sell my meat unless I sell it a half a cow to a local butcher. It's illegal for me to sell it to a grocery store because big businesses have lobbied that you have to be able to pay out of pocket like $30,000 every 3 months to have someone come and inspect your facilities, and only big businesses can afford that. So they love that regulation that prices them out. They see all this little shit. They see interest rates, get artificially cut, and then all of a sudden there's a bust, and like they can't do the volatility that they see in the market is a temporary thing that affects big business more than it affects them. And I think what a lot of them see, for better or worse, true or not true, in terms of whether or not they're accurate, I think they see somebody like Trump that says, I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut all this bullshit. I'm going to drain this swamp or whatever. I'm going to protect American businesses when their competitors have some bullshit honey pot deal to manufacture shit in China. And I don't think they see it with the same level of danger and the same level of like, oh my God, what's going to happen to my business? I think that's mostly the people with money that think of it that way. I
mean, I think that as a business owner, I I would say that as a small business owner, it would largely depend on your foreign imports and to what degree you rely on them. And I would say this would vary from like small business to small business. I'm sure you get some businesses which wouldn't do any at all, and therefore it wouldn't rely on all. And you're right with the like, well, big business would obviously sort of take a larger hit from the volatility of the markets and the tariffs at the moment. I agree there. It's just fact. But you did raise a very interesting point there. You mentioned that small businesses would look at the changing landscape with like all these large businesses coming in with that the landscape's fucked for them, that they've got these large businesses have economies of scale, and these like mom and pop shops don't really have like anything that they can really do to these larger businesses. And
they have economies of scope and economies of descale, but that's fine.
But I would postulate that like that allowing big businesses to run rampant without government intervention would exacerbate this problem.
It's the exact opposite. Government creates monopoly, and government creates. It's the exact opposite.
Big businesses love.
Big business love government. No, every step of the way, big business loves government regulation because it prices out competition.
But they also love creating.
Maintains their
they
power.
also like. Big businesses, every step of the way, their main goal is to you say profits, right? But a lot of big businesses like goals are more like market share and getting as much market share as they can, because once they have market share, it gives that sort of dictates their ability to set price. So
that's untrue. That's just completely false. So we can look, for example, at Alcoa, right? Alcoa is, I think, probably one of the best historical.
Literally had this argument with them for hours one time.
Yo, I'm just saying it's just not true. It's a myth. It's a mythos. Like the history has shown us that it's not true, and you can look at it praxeologically. Market share as a definition of monopoly is a new invention of the left to try and describe how big business is monopolistic, and it's just not true. Alcoa during its foundation had 100%.
Not literally what a monopoly is defined by is market share.
No, not at all. That's a new definition.
It's the new definition. Okay. It is defined by that. That's just a new definition.
Like when leftists change. Yeah, I'm using the original definition of a monopoly, not the new one that says market share is impossible to calculate. You cannot determine what market. It's impossible. You can say so. For example, Alcoa had 100% of all of the sale and distribution for over 35 years of aluminum in the United States of America. And during that time, prices fell over and over and over again on aluminum, down to a quarter of what they were originally. Well, it's like, well, why? Well, the reason why is because aluminum is not just in competition with aluminum. Aluminum is in competition with steel and iron and copper.
So you don't believe that competition brings prices down?
I think competition absolutely brings prices down.
So like
he thinks the regulation takes away from competition.
Yeah, regulation decreases competition.
That regulation, because regulation makes it harder for smaller businesses to get in because they have to pay a lot more for the regulatory prices, and so now to meet regulatory
regulatory capture.
The problem is that that's true, but it's a lot harder for small businesses to sell products at cheap rates and buy them at bulk like large businesses are, and so they still have they're not really competing when it comes to pricing these things because their stuff's almost always going to be more expensive.
That's not true. Points. You're skipping point one, and you're skipping ahead of like my argument there, Tom. But what I wanted to point out. So you believe that competition increases competitiveness, and competitiveness sort of like lowers prices. Yeah.
I think competition tends to either increase quality or lower price. Yeah. That is the pressure that it puts on. It doesn't happen 100% of the time in any domain, but over time, that is what the pressures do. Right. So if you've got like two or three big players in a market, and these two or three big players control like 90% of the 90% of the market. Do you think that between the three of them, they can determine the price of the market?
what
I
they're
think
selling
price
to the
price fixing occurs, right? But what happens when you price fix? When you price fix, what you do is that you artificially you try and increase your profit in the short term. But whenever you make something more expensive than what the market naturally would have done, because you did a cartel, because you're describing a cartel, right? 2 or 3 businesses attempt to price fix and they agree that, together we're going to fix the price. What ends up happening is you attract investors, you attract competition. Because what happens is that because the price is artificially high, because you often lose rate of profit because you sell more by increasing price. So you don't necessarily make more profit by increasing price. Sometimes you can lose profit by increasing price, but also you attract investors to get into that business because now the profit margin has increased on what that thing is. And you've created the very competition that wants to come in and destroy you. And more often than not, it's the initial investment that is the difficulty of getting into that business.
But there is a barrier to entry, and that's usually the capital required to compete with these businesses.
Right. And when you engage in a cartel, that barrier to entry becomes less of a problem because you artificially increase price.
No, if you're talking about if you want to compete with for example in Australia, Coles or Woolworths and which are the 2 super food giants in Australia. They both have they have a silly amount of, they have 80% share of the 80% or higher of the food sales in the Australian market. Essentially,
that's impossible to calculate.
I don't know about that one. But what I will say is that between those two, they do engage in some level of price fixing. You can see it you'll see it with if you've got a large set of food chains in an area of America, after an inflationary period, the prices remain artificially high for some reason, and usually this is because there's a few small players in the market who just don't lower their prices when the inflation comes back down.
You're establishing a historical fact. You're not actually talking about economic.
They're able to do this because between the three of them, or between the 2 of them, they have a large market share. And if you want to sort of get in, if you want to sort of okay, well then new players want to get in, and as soon as those new players do spend the hundreds of millions of dollars to sort of compete on a scale of these supermarkets, suddenly there's a price war that's going on. And once they've outpriced you, then they sort of back on track for their I'd say that their increased prices.
So you're saying when new players come into the market and they're competitive,
yes, they did this when
lower
Costco
prices, right? And you're saying they lower prices, like you said, right? So competition, right? But what does that have to do with government regulation into the market in that domain? So first and foremost, you said percentage of market share. You're not wrong that if I arbitrarily pick a product, I can determine via data how much of the market is captured by a company. Like if I pick leather shoes, I can say, well, yes, this company sells 84% of the leather shoes. The reason I'm saying it's impossible to calculate is because leather shoes are not always in competition with leather shoes. They're in competition with boots. They're in competition with sandals. They're in competition with other products that aren't the same product. The same is true with aluminum. We saw this with Rockefeller when.
Well, why can't you calculate those separately? Like tennis shoes, sandals, like boots. Why can't you calculate each one of those separately instead?
Because you can't calculate, because value is subjective and you can't calculate what every person is using for every product. So, for example, when we looked at John D. Rockefeller killed the American whaling industry. Well, why did he kill the American whaling industry? How does that make sense? Because kerosene produced by Rockefeller was in competition for oil lamps that were using whale oil. Okay, so he is even when you calculate his market share, you have to recognize that there is another product that fulfills the same thing, but because kerosene is cheaper, that product was killed. But if he had artificially increased his price by like 300%, what we would have seen is the whaling industry pick back up, despite the fact that he could have complete control or majority control of kerosene. He wouldn't have control of
the
whale
easiest example of market share that people use is going to be like Amazon and the like them taking over the large market or the largest share of the market in books, right? And then eventually realizing that they could do literally this with everything, and then attempting to do it with literally everything. And so with books, you're able to like actually see like what it is that people are buying. Obviously, books are a type of entertainment that people are using, or even a type of education that people are using. And there's other types of entertainment and education that exists, but when it comes to books, like people are normally specifically looking for books, and so if you're the only seller of books, you can get somewhat of a monopsony to that end.
Well, it wouldn't be a monopsony, but I get what you're saying, because there'd be multiple buyers of books. But yeah, monopoly, yeah. But again, this is also where economies of scope comes into play. What Amazon did is they destroyed many of the major stores where people bought and sold books, right? Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, a lot of these like huge department stores that sold lots and lots of books, most of them had to shut down. What we have seen in the last few years is we have seen a growth in small bookstores. It's like, well, if Amazon already destroyed the purchasing and already destroyed all the businesses that ship and do that were bigger and had better economies of scale, why would small businesses that sell books that are much more expensive than Amazon start to do well? That's because economies of scope, right? Yes, it is true that if you want to buy a book and you heard a book is good, the cheapest place to get it and the quickest way to get it to your house is to buy it on Amazon. But maybe you don't know what book you want to read. Maybe you want to go to a little corner store in the village and like see the cute hippie girl that may or may not stink, but you can't tell until you get close to her, that's wearing her Birkenstocks, right? And ask her and hit on her while asking her like, what's a really cool romance novel, right? And that experience is something that Amazon can't sell because a product can't be measured in competition solely based off of what the product is. That's because value is subjective, and there are other elements of any buying and selling of a product, such as the quality, such as the environment, such as like where it is, such as the experience that you're selling, right?
There is absolutely like subsidies to like any given market, but you're still kind of like, listen, buddy, look, I like your glasses. That's a nice pair of glasses there. Do you know that I think there's like one seller in Australia who sells like all the I think it's called sunglasses out here, and they sell all the brands of. They have a monopoly because they purchased all the selling rights to like
the glasses companies,
the glasses companies in Australia. Is there anyone else who can sell retail like glasses anywhere? Nope. That market just doesn't exist anymore.
Is it illegal?
What you've seen over the no, but what you've seen, and to illustrate what you said earlier about like companies sort of like the small man feeling the pinch of like larger companies, is like a push over the part as small businesses taking like less and less of a percent of like our economies, and like larger businesses using their economies of scale to sort of like take over a larger and larger section of the economy. Now, what would happen in a purely ANCAP market? This is just business, baby. Let the small times roll. I think that there is
that'd be great. That'd be awesome. We should celebrate that as an achievement of man and a moral victory for the businessman. The destruction of inefficient small businesses you should celebrate it, and you should look at the people that got fired and go, "Oh my God, I'm so happy you're fired because my glasses are cheap."
Well, the destruction of small business overall, because they're always going to charge more for their products, and so we just need large business selling everything because they get it in bulk.
Again, economies of scope. This is you have to. If a company is able to provide,
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's.
I just wanted to morally grandstand of the superiority of businesses that destroy the small business.
I just wanted to point us out that like a lot, like throughout this process of like small businesses getting like a smaller and smaller share, and the sort of the businessmen having less and less opportunities because of larger and larger businesses in the workplace, that while there is sort of like niche opportunities that pop up due to like Amazon and stuff, and this will always happen, that like taxes are good. There is got to be some level of like redistribution of wealth and government services
fuck socialism
that come into play. Okay, you get to allow his worldview to come into to allow Fabian Liberty to have his full way would be to allow uncapped control over like large businesses with almost infinite amounts of capital to like come in and wreck mom and pop shops.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a straw man, but I'll just make it very simple, right? when you are a business, okay, there are two ways that you can make money in a mixed market economy. Two ways. Ultimately, there are two ways. One way is to improve the quality of your product or the efficiency of which you create the product so that you can lower the price, right? That's one way. To provide a good and service to people, and it's the best good or service compared to your competitor because it's cheaper or because the quality is better or because you have found some niche, whatever. The other way is regulatory capture, which is you go to the government and you get the government to write the rules in your favor so that it becomes more difficult for other people to compete with you. Those are the only two ways that you can make money as a business.
There's like good location for selling. There's like having
but
there's like having a
that
strong
all falls
brand.
in that all falls into the first one. A strong brand is psychic profit. People believe that they're getting a better good or service or a higher quality service. It's just marketing, right? A good location is just a means of getting the product to people so that they can provide the good, right? Like I agree with you that there are other means of doing it, but ultimately it falls into the category of in some way, shape, or form, you are providing a good or service that people want better than your competitors. Maybe it's your brand, maybe it's your quality, maybe it's the experience, maybe it's the price, whatever it is. And then the other way to make money is to use the government and to make them rig the rules in favor of you. And as an ANCAP, all I'm really ultimately trying to do in our current economic situation is to lessen the impact of the latter and increase the impact of the former. I want businesses to succeed because for whatever reason, they gave you a better product, a cheaper product, a better quality product, a better experience, whatever. And if a company does that without rigging the rules in their favor and destroys all the small businesses without going to the government, the reason they did that is because individual customers chose them. They chose their product because it was cheaper or because it was a better service or was better quality or better user experience, or they just felt it was better for some reason. And they're all individually happier because they've got more money in their product or they got a better pair of glasses on their face. And if they use the government and government subsidies and tax write-offs and regulation to get that, then the people are worse off because of it. That is all I am advocating for.
Later. He will literally argue this the whole day. Counterpoints.
That was me wrapping up.
And
That was me
we
wrapping
have a
up.
limited amount of time.
Well,
Well, I was gonna say, I think you have like other questions that you wanted to get to as well, and I didn't want you to us to run out of time before you got to all of them.
Listen, I can yell randomly about random stuff if you guys want, but I didn't. Are we running till 11? Is that the runtime?
That's fine. I was with the questions. I'm pretty much good. We covered it, like all of the scope I had just in like various talks we've had throughout the night. So for me, I'm good with like where we're at right now. So we can call it to a close here if you guys are happy to. Well,
you did have you had another question that we literally thought about, which I was actually interested in hearing, like Fabian. That we didn't, and it's the Fabian. What is so it's not specifically for you, but it's just like him and I fought over the wording of this question for this panel, and we did it on stream. Like he was telling me what the questions were going to be, and I started fighting with him over the wording of this. But it was over whether or not because I told him I didn't know what your answer was going to be. I said I know what everybody else's answer is going to be. I don't know what yours. Yes, is whether or not you think trade deficits are a negative.
I don't think trade deficits exist.
And should you use?
I go even
to
more.
Increase,
I'll go even crazier. I don't think a trade deficit is a real thing. I think it is a made it exists in that it is a measurable thing, right? That we can say this much product and this much money, etc. Right? But the term trade deficit to me is like a dirty word that is designed to make people feel bad instead of engaging in reality. And the reality is if I go to the grocery store and I have $10 and I buy a box of cereal because I'm an unhealthy fat American that has a large processed carbohydrate diet, right? And I buy this poison, okay? Regardless of whether or not it's poison, regardless of whether or not RFK wants to stop this, I purchased something and I am happier to give up my money because I want the box of cereal more than I want the money. And the grocery store wants to get rid of the box of cereal, and they want my money more than they want to keep this box of cereal. That is not a trade deficit. We're both happier because we both gave up something that we valued less for something that we valued more. That's the first point. The second point is measuring trade deficits is retarded. And the reason it's retarded is it kind of worked when we had monarchies and basically all goods were material goods. But America sells consulting. America sells software solutions. America sells, business contacts. America sells a lot of things that are intangible and difficult to measure. And so when someone does like a trade deficit analysis, it's kind of dumb because they're looking at, like we don't have an industrial economy the way that other nations do. We have a service, software solution, financial economy. And some of what we sell is fucking access, right? If you're friendly to us, you get IMF loans. How does that work on a fucking trade deficit fucking calculation? It just doesn't make sense. So my whole thing is the whole question around trade deficits as like a really meaningful distinction is only meaningful as so far that we can tell which companies produce more material goods, not necessarily discuss what the economic transaction between these two countries looks like.
Okay. Yeah, the answer is no. Yeah, I knew me and Connor were gonna say no, but I didn't know. I wasn't sure which direction you would take it. So that's fair enough. Okay. Leader, sorry.
No, that's fine. I guess thank you everyone for coming and having and spending a little bit of time with us. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Fabian.
Of course.
Thank you, Tom. You guys are all great.
I didn't tell anyone to end their own lives, so this is a perfect panel. Do you mind if I do a shout out though, just because I do have things that I want to
brother. I'm just kidding.
I'll be quick. So if you enjoyed any of the things that I had to say, or even if you disliked them but you thought they were entertaining, then go ahead and type in Counterpoints into your search bar. You should find my Warhammer channel fairly easily. It's Counterpoints 40K. You'll also find my political channel Counterpoints, which is growing, and we're going to be loading it with tons of content. We're having issues with production, but we're fixing those issues very shortly. Also, if you type in Valor Media Network into your search bar, Valor Media is effectively like first responders, law enforcement officers, military veterans, special forces guys, and they're trying to make better content. Now, if I'm being real, it's a little boomer, but we're working on it. We're making it better every single day. And so if you want to catch me, I'm live on the Valor Media Network 20 hours a week. I'm live on my home channel, my politics channel, 5 hours a week. And I post Warhammer videos weekly. So if you're interested in any of those projects, please come check us out.
Fabian, is there anything you want to shout out before we go?
Yeah, I'm just a guy on the internet that, had a lot of crazy shit happen in my life, and I decided to be a streamer because I'm stupid. But I'm smart when it comes to libertarian philosophy and, the occasional bent into objectivism. Just Google Fabian Liberty. I don't, unlike Connor, I don't love DC. So I don't have like any network that is funneling money to me or trying to get me to capture some specific group or interest. My opinions are just my opinions. So if you want to just find my opinions, just Fabian Liberty everywhere, and that's where I'm at, predominantly on YouTube and X.
How about you, Tom?
You guys with that fucking progressive victory shit.
I know, right?
Well, no, progressive victory was the first one. Now it's Valor Media.
Now it's Valor Media. Yeah.
Valor Media Network specifically. Check it out.
Here's the thing though. They did. Some people gave me a little bit of flack during the PV stuff, and I took it to heart. Which was they were like, "Why didn't you find people that were more lined up with your values?" And then Valor Media was like, "Hey, we're a bunch of vet bros who hate Trump. You want to come hang out?" And I was like, "Abso-fucking-lutely. That sounds exactly like my values."
Now you got it.
So now I don't have to hang out with commies who like horse porn.
Based. Yeah, I look, everybody obviously knows who I am. I don't need to promote myself, but I am TomFoolery Show. You can find me at youtube.com/TomFoolery Show. I do all sorts of content, cover debates, drama, do lots of debates. We do numerous debates a day. Lately, we've been going and jumping on random TikTok panels and getting into fights with those people. It's been a a lot of fun actually, because those people, especially the conservatives, are very soy. They kick me off of every single panel, every one that I go on. They all freak out, scream and yell at me, mute me nonstop, and then kick me off. It's been a lot of fun. And then even the other day, we were going over the Dean and Parker drama over the microaggression crap, and went on there, had some debates with some of these crazy lefties, and got banned for hate speech for screaming and yelling at them. But I got unbanned today, so I'm allowed to go back on and scream and yell at those.
I was like, how have you not been banned on TikTok? All right.
I get suspended all the time. Literally half my videos get taken down. I don't know how they keep letting me come back, but 3-day suspension, back at it today. So we're going.
I got permabanned within 24 hours, and then I made a new one, and that one got permabanned.
I don't know.
And I was like, all right, fuck it, fuck TikTok.
I don't know why they keep letting me come back, but yeah, TomFoolery show on YouTube. We're streaming 8 hours a day, every day. Just started this stream, so we'll be on for a lot longer.
And you can follow me at Leader TV. Sometimes I do panels, sometimes I do gaming content, sometimes I do political debates. So you can find me on Twitch at that's LEAD3R_TV. That's it. Yeah, once again, thank you everyone who came in and participated. Love you all.
Wait, Connor.
Parasocial Love. You say my name?
Yes. Are you still doing your podcast with what's her face?
Brianna? No. So kind of what happened was we had the debate with Queeman, which obviously, like, you know, that wasn't fun, but you know, a lot of people in Twitch and YouTube politics have been really kind to me in a certain regard, where if I've asked for a conversation, they've given it to me. Right. There's never been, I can't think of somebody who turned me down, except for maybe Vosh. And it wasn't like a pound sand. It was like, I'm not really interested in that topic. Right. So a lot of people have been really good to me. So since a lot of people have been good to me, I like to take on all comers. Right. And then what happened with the Destiny drama, when that broke, obviously we did our coverage. Lav, Queeman wanted to jump on. And Brianna was like, I don't think that's a good idea. It's drama. It's gross, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm kind of retarded and I love fighting, so I'm going to go for that. And so as a result, we kind of had like a split. We're still friendly. We're still friends. But we just have like a different vibe on what Twitch and YouTube politics is and kind of like what you need to do. And so she wants to be up there with the highfalutin people talking fancy convos on fancy podcasts. I want to do that too. But I also want to do rough and tumble riffraff stuff, because I wouldn't be here without the rough and tumble riffraff. And so, I want to do that.
Conversations about those philosophies as well. Because there's
Brianna Wu, you know, one of the spearheads of made up drama and lies of Gamergate. You know what I mean?
Well, right. I'm not. Yeah, I don't. You know, I don't. I get frustrated with a lot of people, just like.
I don't get decent money, not because I won't take
like,
it, because I shit on everybody for the bullshit they did in the past. There you go.
Wait, who?
Why people have forgiven Brianna Wu for all the bullshit she pulled in Gamergate?
Well, I think a lot of the centrists and conservatives kind of forgave her because she just started giving them their talking points. But I also think that there's something to be said that you got to own your shit, right? If somebody calls you out on your shit, you got to own it. So that's where, you know, I want to wrestle in mud with the pigs, and she's not interested in that. So we just have different visions.
Right.
So.
Yeah, her and I got, when I said we had some difference in philosophy on this, there was a while ago where she was unfairly getting attacked by like a President Sunday, and they were all like making a big deal about some dumb bullshit. And yeah,
it was a President Sunday video?
Like even just defending her. Well,
is President Sunday what?
I was just like
so it was a President Sunday
disagreeing
video.
with President Sunday on what he was saying.
It's a President Sunday video.
President Sunday.
Yeah.
It was just President Sunday, yes. And so I defended her on this, and kind of like, because he was just running around calling her out, and a lot of people were kind of picking up on this. Even Wick like had him on. It was like, look, I didn't know all of that, so I'm just gonna leave that alone. And so I was like dude, this is all bullshit. He's literally just making this shit up and people are buying it. So I went on like a fucking rampage, like calling this out. And yeah, she didn't like that I was even addressing it, talking about it, like anything at all. But I felt like it was like better to be defensive and get the truth out there. And but and it's not like a mark against her at all. But the reason I asked is because the last couple of times I talked to you, I was wanting to have a conversation with the both of you about some of the stuff having to do with trans people that was going on. And I never saw you guys again on your show. So yeah, there was I couldn't get an answer from anybody.
I like slumming it, and for better or for worse, my dog shit opinions are my dog shit opinions. And so if I'm going to be public and have my dog shit opinions, as long as you're not a schizophrenic who's actively trying to like dox my house or something like that, I'll have a conversation with pretty much anybody. So it's just a different content philosophy.
Yeah, I think that there's I also think that there's probably people who have had.
I'm good on all that gay drama farming and clout bullshit. So I'm good. You'll have fun. Bye. All right, I'm done with that. Just cannot make me give a fuck about fucking President Sunday video. Attack on fucking Brianna. Shut up. I don't care. I just like the panel was over and we're over here like, but what about the drama and the drama with the drama and the more drama with the drama? It's just fucking none of these people give a fuck about truth. None of these people, like, none of them do. I'll go on panels to discuss ideas because I want my ideas out there and I want to entertain you guys by exposing people to ideas. But the moment we start talking about like, well, I felt it was so important to address the misrepresentations that President Sunday did, and I wanted to connect with you guys about it, but then you guys weren't together because you guys were addressing the Destiny allegations and I should have done like fucking Tyrant and just did a fucking interview YouTube channel. fucking streamers make me sick, bro. It's all just gay, dumb, fucking patting themselves on the back for farming clout. Like, go read a fucking book and then tell your audience about the book you read and the things you learned about the economy or something. I don't understand how people enjoy drama. 99% of the time, it's the most boring shit in the world. I mean, it can get fun when it gets heated because you're arguing with the person at that moment or something. Like, I get that. You know what I mean? People like to see a cat fight. But like the drumming up to get to the cat fight to then get the resolution to pat yourself on the back is just fucking nonsense to me. Twitch Politics is a social club for socialists? Yeah, pretty much. That's true all the way up at the top. Except for like Asmongold kind of like sits in this weird space where he's friends with a bunch of people that aren't that political that are friends with all the socialists in the socialist club. The astroturfing of Brianna is gross as fuck. Well, she's got the right trans opinions to... She's the fucking the reasonable compromise, right? So everyone wants the reasonable compromise now. And it's just, and people lap up reasonable compromise. They lap it up. They're like, whoa, this person recognizes the crazy, but I just don't want to be like the far right. Fuck that. Take no prisoners. Yeah. I'm not really interested in taking no prisoners. I'm more interested in just being like, all right, cool. Let me know next time you want to do a panel about econ. I'll be back. Like, I'll react to some shit on stream or whatever, you know, but finding drama and then having a panel about the drama and then discussing the drama and then trying to find compromise about the drama so that we can all come together with a consensus on what the drama was is just fucking exhausting trash. Like, if I'm planning on doing a fucking stream like that, I'm just going to talk shit in Discord and not stream that night. Am I going to do another gaming stream? I'm sure I'll do more gaming streams. But tomorrow will be Prime Guys. Tuesday I have a talk with somebody. But Wednesday, Thursday, I don't know if... I got to check my schedule again. I don't remember if I'm doing anything. And if I'm not, I'll probably just be doing some reactions. Somebody paid me money and like I missed it somehow to react to Matt Walsh talking about IP. I don't know how I missed it, but I did. So I'm definitely going to do that. Because somebody gave me money and then I didn't acknowledge it because I guess... my brain didn't see it. I ADHD'd out. So I'm definitely going to do that and then something else. Don't expect any Souls-like game, though. Maybe Night Rain. Dude, Night Rain looks like it could be fun. Yeah, dude, I tried playing Sekiro, and that shit just pissed me off. I was like, fuck this. Immediately got bored. And I got aggravated. But, yeah. But, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. Sunday night is kind of an impromptu night. I very rarely stream on a Sunday night. But we'll be back tomorrow and Tuesday and probably Wednesday and Thursday. Now it's going to be except for 2 times rather than just except for 1 time with Stacy Pastry. Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't miss that one. I saw it. I was just like, let me address this next stream. But that is the first one I just genuinely missed. I didn't see it. But I pride myself on making sure that I address them, especially with as ADHD as I am. But I did miss one, so. But I love you guys. I'll be back tomorrow for Prime Guys, unless it doesn't happen or something. But I plan on being available. And then Tuesday I have to talk with somebody. We'll be doing like a link up with another libertarian channel. And then Wednesday and Thursday, like I said, I got to check my schedule to see what's going on. Happened while you were arguing vigorously? I'm sure. We were talking about the Jews. We're talking about the Jews, guys. So, of course, things happen. I just got really, really mad,
You not fooling a libertarian by bringing up them bitch-ass roads. Libertarians, which tend to be smarter people, fuck them hoe-ass roads, man.
All right, boys, I'm going to get out of here. I love you guys so much. Follow Mentis Waves if it gets 100K. That'll be dope. Follow the Discord, like, share, subscribe, give me some money if you want to give me some money and I'll answer your super chats, or you can get some emotes and things like that. And then follow me on Twitter if you want to see me be toxic, as it says, or see my shower thoughts, or watch me fucking drool over some random black girl or something. Who knows what happens on Twitter. It's just Rippa fell off. Mentis Wave is good. Yeah, Rippa did fall off, but that's such an iconic thing that it's just fun to put in there. All right, guys.